This is Do It For a Living, your source for inside information on the future of automotive performance.
I go on the internet and talk about what we're doing, and I'm passionate about what I do because I absolutely freaking love cars. I go on the internet, I know it promotes me, and other shops have called me out because, hey man, you're on here promoting yourself, but to me, I'm not promoting myself. I'm just talking about the car stuff that I love to do.
What's holding you back from starting or growing your business into what it can be? Well, if you're listening to this, it's not a lack of information. What you're about to hear is all you need to get motivated and start making waves. Do It For a Living podcast details the journey of today's true players in their own words. Find out how they broke out so you can too. The time is now. The time is always now.
Welcome back. Today we've got a legend in the Evo community, DSM community, David Buschur from Buschur Racing. I'm sure everybody knows who he is, at least who listens to this podcast. He's been around for as long as I've been around, plus probably double that. He's definitely one of the first people to build the Evos and go racing with them, and I think this is the same case with the DSM. I'm not too familiar with the DSMs, but he will be able to tell that story for us. And he's also well known even in the GTR community now, so that's kind of the platform that he has gone to. And everybody who is in this kind of racing world also knows what the Buschur Shootout is, and that seems to be coming up here pretty soon, so he'll tell us about that as well. So David, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. And I really appreciate you wanting to do this for us. I know we've asked you a couple times, and it's one of those things that until you actually listen to the podcast, it's kind of a hard one to understand what it is and what it's for. And I think, there's a lot of content in here that I think you will be able to provide that's really valuable to a lot of people. And, just getting the history of this whole industry from your perspective, I think is a really important one to share. So why don't we go ahead and get started here? Why don't you tell us about yourself, David? How did you get started in racing? Take us back to when you were a kid. What kind of got you involved in cars?
Well, my dad always had production fast cars. He never really did much to them. Like, he had a 66 Chevelle with a 327 in it, 3 1/4 horse. Then he went to a 69 Chevelle. These were cars he bought new. And he didn't modify them, but just to give you an idea what got me hooked, I guess, we always had Hot Wheels and playing in the driveway and making roads in the stone. The Chevelle he had was a 375 horse, 396, and it had the factory chambered exhaust on it, so it was loud. It had that V8 sound where it's And he used to get the biggest kick out of how loud the car was. Like, we were waiting in a drive-in to get in to go see a movie one night, and there was 2 lanes going in, and there's an older couple, probably not so old now that I'm 50, but next to us in line, and it's summertime, you're going to the drive-in, and the car's just sitting there, and you can hear the cam rumbling, and these 2 old people looked over at him like he was a punk kid in this car, and they rolled the windows up. And he got the biggest kick out of them having to put the windows up because they didn't like the sound of the car. It's just something when you're little, I was probably 7, that this really sticks out in your head like, wow, this is cool. And then every week we go to my grandmother's house in this car, and we'd stop at the same Sunoco station in a small town called Grafton. And it was my job to roll the rear window down and tell the gas station attendant, it was full serve back then, what we needed. And back then you could buy Sunoco 240 and 260 at the pump. So some weeks he'd really get a treat and get the 260. So I'd roll the window down and I'd say, fill her up 240. And, to this day, 40-some years later, it's a big memory, but so I guess from my dad is where I got it. He ended up eventually getting into turbo Buicks.
And was that in Ohio?
Yeah, all in Ohio.
Okay.
I'm from a small town, Wakeman. We originally lived in another fairly small college town not too far from here, Oberlin. We moved out here when I was in about 4th or 5th grade, and I've lived here ever since.
Okay.
I guess always being in the cars, I went in the Army when I was in 84, and I had a motorcycle then. I bought a Camaro when I was down there, all these clean, rust-free bodies down in Alabama. I got a Monty SS in 85 before I left for Korea, and my dad took care of the car while I was gone, and I expected him to buy a Monty because he loved the car. Well, the Turbo Buicks came out when I got out of the Army in 87, and he told me he was going to buy this stupid Turbo V6, and I was like, why in the world would you buy a V6? You've been driving my Monte Carlo for a year. He's like, man, I've always liked Buicks. Well, he bought the car, and the day we went to pick it up, I was following him home in my Monte, and we stopped at an intersection, and I beat my horn at him in the back, knowing that when the light turned green, I was going to pass him on the left, and this was going to be over and done with. Well, at about 70, that Buick chirped the tires going in, I don't know, probably 2nd or 3rd gear, and it was gone. And that was my first taste of the turbo world. And it blew me away because the Monty would run like 15.1. I think the Buick Bone stock, his ran about 1390s. So, I've always been in the cars, and the turbo Buick led me to look into the Eagle Talon.
And when the Talon, the first one you got, that was late 80s, right? Like 89 or 88 or
Yeah,
something?
I bought the very first one. I was in my Monty, and this place, Bob Pugh Jeep Eagle, which actually ended up sponsoring my car for many, many years, they had a black with a silver bottom all-wheel drive Talon on a lot, and I just thought the thing looked kind of cool. I stopped and test drove it, and when I drove it, I was thinking to myself, I think this thing will outrun my darn Monte Carlo. So I traded the car in, and in '89 it was an expensive car. It was a 90 model year car. The car was $19,000 when it came out, so they were pretty expensive cars then, and nobody built parts for the car then. So I wanted to start modifying, and I kind of watched my dad with the Buick. He'd already been modifying his. That was the one car that when he bought, he instantly started to modify. In his entire life, he never touched the car. He bought it. The Chevelle always stayed stock and never did anything to it. So, he had an open air filter on it, so there was nothing like that. HKS had a few parts out in 90 for the car, but I'm talking, like this foam, I don't know, you don't remember what it was called. It was that funnel, mushroom-looking air filter.
I still see them on cars, too. It's crazy.
It is crazy. So, I did a filter on it. Dynamax offered an exhaust for it. So I did some real mild mods to the car. And the first time I went to the track with it, ran 1348. And not to get too far off what got me started, but I was working at the steel mill then with my dad, and there was a bunch of car guys there. And I told them, man, I think this car will run 13s. And they told me I was nuts. It's a 4-cylinder. And back then, when you took a Turbo 4 to the track that ran 13s, no V8 guys had turbos on the car. Now, these V8 guys that have turbos now got it because of the import guys. That's period. That's where it developed from. And back then, look, I don't want to make fun of people with Southern accents, but that's where I go with this. And my family's from Tennessee. But goddamn, boy, what you got there? That was the attitude when they looked underneath the hood, and they couldn't believe when the car would run 13s that it's not even possible. There's 5-liter Mustangs that run 15s, 1490s. So the development of the car and the business started because there were no parts for it.
Okay.
There was nobody making parts for those cars. Nobody cared about imports or 4-cylinders then.
And wanting to modify it was kind of taking after your dad a little bit on that?
No, I had always modified the cars that I had. So to go back a little bit, my dad had this 69 Chevelle growing up. My mom drove a 70 Chevelle growing up with a 300-horse 350 in it. That was my first car. And as soon as I got it, I put headers on it and, did exhaust on it and had it painted. It was a rust bucket in Ohio. The car was 14 years old, but it had, fist-sized holes in the body. My dad and I did the body work on it, and I had a local guy here in high school that was taking body work, auto body at school. He painted it. So I've always wanted to modify cars. I didn't get the modification part from my father. I got the love of cars, I think, from my father.
Okay. And did you go to any kind of trade school at all or college, or is it just kind of self-taught on like modifying things?
Modifying things was self-taught. I was really, really bad in high school, like not behavior bad. I got in some trouble, but, minor stuff, fight here or there or something like that. But I did poorly in school. If I'm not interested in something, I can't comprehend it no matter how hard it's beat into my head. So I barely made it through high school. But during high school, I was taking trade school at nights. There was a local JVS, and I went and did adult education classes as a junior to learn small engine repair because I wanted to open a small engine repair shop.
Okay.
Actually, now that I think back, it had to be before I was a junior because I didn't have a driver's license.
Okay.
So I would I'd go to school during the day. I worked at a local hardware store here. The gentleman that owned it, Rob Tite, he was a pretty good mentor of mine back in the day. He wanted me to do small engine repair at the hardware store. So he paid for the school. So after I worked there, I'd go out to the JVS, do an adult class, and then get up the next day and do high school, hardware store, and the adult class, every day for months.
Okay.
And it actually, my father helped me build, my mom and dad, we built a small shop in our garage at home, put a sign out by the end of the road, and I bought some Foley Bell Saw. It was a big company back there with sharpening equipment. I bought a really nice chainsaw sharpener and, a welder, and started my own business probably when I may have just turned 16, but I was doing small engine repair and sharpening chains, working at this hardware store, and still going to school.
Okay, so you had a lot of things going on.
I didn't excel at school. I never excelled at school. I excelled at working hard And if I get interested in something, I can learn it.
Okay. And
so like the small engine repair stuff, but to go to school and, you know, if I need an algebra question answered now, something as simple as like figuring out like a flex fuel table, there's a spreadsheet for it. But if I need to do it, I'll text my son. He's a genius. Yeah. He's 18. And
I was just going to ask you that.
Answer. Yeah, he sends me the answer. I can't do it.
Okay, so you were working at a steel mill, and you had gotten the DSM, your first one, which was a 90 year. You started developing parts for this thing. Was that just out of your own desire to go faster with it? I mean, you're going to the drag racing, or the Summit Motorsport Park was right there, right? Is that what it's called, Summit?
Yeah, it's right down the street. It's about 10 miles. It used to be Norwalk Raceway, now it's Summit Motorsports Park, yeah.
Okay, and that's probably where you were racing kind of in this time frame? Is that true?
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's right down the street. So, yeah, I started making the parts because there was just nothing else available. So I got out of the Army. Worked at some small screw machine shop that didn't pay anything, and I was just going to go back into the Army because the pay was so poor. I couldn't find a good job. I was an MP when I was in the Army.
Okay.
I went to MPI school, SRT school, which is like SWAT school. I was a sniper on the SWAT team. So I was just going to go back in. And my father told me, if you just wait, we're going to hire at the steel mill. It was LTV Steel at the time. Good paying job, you know, like $40,000 a year with some overtime. Mm-hmm. So he didn't want me to go back. So he just begged me, you know, just wait. It's going to be any time, you know, just give me another month. Well, after about 3 months of being out of the service, using up what money I had saved and not making enough, I did get into the steel mill. So I worked at the steel mill for, I don't know, probably 2 years. And I've always lifted weights on and off throughout my life. I opened a gym in another small town, Wellington, not too far from here. And it went really well for 2 years. You know, it was successful. So I worked full time at the steel mill. I'd get off, go to the gym from 3 to 9 o'clock when it closed, 7 days a week. Well, after 2 years, I decided that most of the people that went to a gym were more interested in the clothing they wore and talking than actually getting results. And I got really tired of people, you know, why don't I get results? I see you constantly getting results. And I would tell them, because you come in here and talk, and when you leave, you go across the street to the bar and you get something to eat and drink. But people don't want the truth. So it was still successful. The gym did really well. I sold all the equipment to somebody and closed it. And just about that time, that was probably right about the time frame that the Talon had started going 13. So I've got some notes in front of me, actually. So that was around 92. Someone else had gone, I think 1320s in the country.
Okay.
I don't remember who it was. It may have been an HKS built car. I don't remember. But in 1992, I broke that record, and the car had went 1314. And that was just about the time that I had closed the gym, and I was starting to build parts, you know, porting exhaust manifolds, making short throw shifters, upper intercooler pipes. There was no good place to mount the gauges in the car. So the first product I ever built, there was a heat duct in the center of the Eagle Talon above the heater controls. I popped that out, and I think I can make anything with a hole saw, a bench grinder, and a TIG welder. So I cut a piece of steel, put it in there, and I put 2 VDO gauges in there. I think a boost gauge and an EGT gauge at the time. Well, I went to the track here at Norwalk, and somebody saw it and said, "Hey, man, that's awesome. Where'd you get that?" I wanted the dealer to put gauges in mine. So I said, "Well, I'll make you one." So I made another one on a bench grinder. Somebody else wanted one, and I couldn't make enough, so I actually had them laser cut and powder coated. Well, within a year or two, somebody knocked that product off. That was the first product that we built that had copied. And it pissed me off so bad, we discontinued it, and I wouldn't make them anymore because I was mad.
And this is in 92. This is already happening.
This was actually probably pre that, because by the time the car went 1314, I already had gauges in the car.
Okay.
So this was probably in 91 even. And then anyway, so I closed the gym, and then I was approached by, there was a newsletter back then. So this is pre-internet days, called the MDSOG. It was a Mitsubishi Diamond Star Owners Group, and it was owned by a man that I'm still friends with, Mike Westwood. He owned Alamo Autosports in Texas, and he had this newsletter that was quarterly. And you know, you had to sign up, and the thing came in the mail, and you couldn't wait to get it. Well, the first few I saw, I submitted an article to Mike about what I was doing with the car. Well, he became really interested because now I'm the record setter for it. And I wrote for this magazine, this newsletter, from the fall of 90 until October 98 when it was discontinued. And even in 98, the internet wasn't, you know, it wasn't like it was today. We had a small AOL, I think, I don't remember if it was a chat room. I don't really remember how that news group worked, but I think it was almost something you had to download that was in DOS to read it. So you kind of, everybody submitted everything, and then the moderator, I think, sent it back out for everybody to read. But I don't remember, but Mike Westwood got me started, and he eventually asked me, why don't you start selling all these parts you're making, and we'll advertise them in this MDSOG newsletter. So when I first started, I didn't want to use my last name, and the business actually started out as a company I called Priority Performance. So I don't know how long that lasted, maybe a year or two, and it really snowballed. It went from doing these small gauge clusters to I started doing down pipes, off-road pipes, catbacks. Back then the catbacks were nicely bent, but not mandrel bent, a press bent 2.5-inch exhaust that I was building at home, in fixtures. Mm-hmm. And it, this isn't to brag or anything, but it's to tell you how quickly this business grew. I went into the steel mill one day and I took my checkbook with me. I told my dad, I said, holy crap, man, look at this. He's like, well, how did you get that much money in your checking account? I said, I sold $13,000 worth of parts this month. He said, you did what? And there was no business then. It wasn't a business. It was just something I was doing because I didn't want to open a business. I was just helping other people out that needed parts. But it spread through this newsletter across the entire country like wildfire. So there was guys like Jeff Hill back then, super good guy. I haven't talked to him in probably 20 years. He was the owner of Turbo Tricks at the time, and he sold it to some other people who I won't mention their names because they're not worthy of a mention. But Jeff was a super good guy, and back then there was a very small group of us that, we were like brothers. There was Jeff Hill, Greg DeRocco, Chris Croft, Eric Plabani. I have to really rekindle my memory because we're talking 30 years ago that we'd get together and race. So to go into that, Mike Westwood wanted to have a little track day. So I talked to the owner of Norwalk Raceway, Bill Bader Sr., and he said, yeah, you guys come on and do something, and we'll reserve lane 8 for you on Friday night so you guys can have that lane to yourself for your cars. So the first time we did this would actually be the first official shootout. There were 4 people that came. Mike Westwood came in with his wife, and there was a guy named Bob Hayworth there, Ray Parks, Dean Bradley, myself, and my Talon was broke at the shop with the rear end exploded in it. So I actually I built a big block 69 Chevelle like my dad's. It was blue, beautiful car. I had that out there because my DSM was broke, which was pretty common then. And so the first year we actually did a shootout. There was only 4 people at it. Well, the next year I turned it into the MDSOG shootout. That was the first year that I consider the shootout, which this year would have been 24 years ago. And we had 8 guys show up.
Okay.
And some of those guys, Chris and Jeff that I mentioned, were some of those first 8 guys. And there was 8 Talons parked in the backyard of my house. I still have the photos from it for the first year. And every year since then, I know I get off on, if I get too far off, you can bring me back. But okay. Every year since then, for the first, I don't know how many years, it doubled. And then it over doubled. So there was 8 and then 17 and then 47, then 98, and then 200 and some cars that showed up. And it grew exponentially year to year. And probably for the first 6 years that we did that race, I supplied food. I'd rent a restaurant or a conservation hall we did. I'd order pizza and everybody'd eat for free, and we'd do a little handout. Back then, if you won a class, I just gave out a hat.
Okay.
And it said the class winner on the hat. And then, it turned into trophies.
And this is still all with the, I guess, first and second gen DSMs by some of this time frame,
right? This is first DSM by far. The second gens didn't come out till 95.
Okay.
By 95, we had probably 5 shootouts.
Okay. So several years into it then already. Okay.
Yeah, several years, yes.
And the guy who owned Alamo Autosports, that was in San Antonio, right?
I believe so. That's Mike Westwood. There's another one down there now that's still open.
Yeah, and that's owned by Bryce. I don't remember his last name, but Bryce is, and that's in Arlington, Dallas area.
Yes, that's correct. Mm-hmm. Yep. Mike doesn't do any of that anymore. He closed his up, and I believe that, I could be wrong, but I believe both of them were kind of related at the time, the Alamo Autosports.
Okay. I'll have to follow up with Bryce and see how that storyline goes.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but Mike was a very instrumental. I don't know if I'd ever actually started a business had he not said, "Why aren't you selling this stuff that you're making? There's a big demand for it because nobody makes anything." There was another example. There was an ad in the back of Turbo magazine back then. It was Horgan Engineering, and they sold this really badass boost control. So I spent like $90 on this boost control. They sent it to me. It was a DeVelbus paint regulator valve for the actual inlet pressure to a paint gun. And, you know, I put it on the car, and the first time I put it on, I thought the factory boost gauge worked. Well, the DSMs don't actually measure boost. It was mass airflow or something. So the car started hitting fuel cut. So I called, I believe the man's name was Roger Horgan. I called him up, and I said, hey, man, the car's shutting off for some reason. Oh, you got too much, there's too much boost. You need this next device we got. So they had a fuel controller that tapped into the wires that went to the coolant temp sensor. And it would trick the car to think it was either hotter or colder to change the air-fuel ratio. And it would allow you to get away with a few more pounds of boost. But back then, we're talking big boost was 16 pounds.
And that was that's really how a lot of these things were back then, is just interceptors and signal modifiers, basically, is how they were trying to trick the cars into being tuned, right?
Absolutely. Even like the VPC, which everybody still makes fun of me to this day that I could only turn however 90 knobs around that, 4 knobs or 6 knobs to tune a car. But the VPC converted the car from mass air to speed density. And it was a simple dial that had a gain, an idle. I don't even remember what else was on it now at this point. And then the HKS really got high tech, and they came out with a GCC, which was like an equalizer for your radio that worked with the VPC. But as much as people like to make fun of this stuff, you know, we ran 780s at 174 miles an hour with a stock DSM computer that was modified by a gentleman named Todd Day, TMO. He could burn a chip for it, and he raised our rev limiter, and, you know, he could change the timing a little bit, take the fuel cut out of it. But so with this simple piggyback computer that was, it was nothing but tricking the factory computer, and a single set of 4 660cc injectors, we were able to run 780s at 174 miles an hour with a 2-liter engine with crap technology. I mean, it's a T67P trim. This is 20-year-old turbo technology, you know?
So how is, and this has always baffled me, this is kind of off topic a little bit. I mean, how is everybody be able to go so fast back then? And even now, with all the technology developments we've had, better turbos, you know, stronger engines, you know, better computer systems, traction control, all that kind of thing. How is it that it's still so hard to go so fast? I don't get it. How did you do it back then?
I don't know, man. It's trial and error. You know, there was no internet. When we started first building engines, we thought just putting a set of pistons on those great big 6-bolt 1G rods was stellar. So the first rear-wheel drive that we built, which was in 96, I got tired of breaking the all-wheel drive DSM. Matter of fact, I sold my DSM to another well-known DSM guy with an exploded rear end in it. I was tired of fixing it. The car had gone 1105 at 127 with the VPC in it. So we built this rear-wheel drive, and I remember I was at ATCO. The car it was running about 960s, 940s, and I was racing Adam Staratari in his RX-7, and I treat him. I knew there was no chance he was going to beat me. I was out about half track, and all of a sudden, oil started coming up over the windshield. There was no way I was going to lift. I could not see out of the windshield. So I was looking to my left because I was close to the guardrail, and I just kept the distance to the guardrail the same to finish. Well, right in the lights, he passed me, and I never did beat Adam. In all the races we had, something always broke on the car, or I think we raced twice. Both times we're in finals. Both times he beat me. The car broke. I'm not making excuses. It's just a fact of the matter. But I wasn't going to lift. So when we got back to the pits, we were trying to figure out what the hell happened to the engine because there's oil everywhere, but it still ran. It just didn't sound right. Well, the rods were bent in the block. And, that's finally when some aftermarket rods came out. We were still using stock rods with just a set of pistons on it to go these speeds. Mm-hmm. So everything was trial and error then. You know, looking back, there was not even an air fuel gauge. If you wanted to go to a dyno and use somebody's wideband, it was like $300 extra an hour because the sensors are so expensive. The leaded fuel tore them up, and they would charge you $300 an hour for the use of the wideband.
And they just, not very many people had them. And I remember Motec being one of the few you could even buy when I started doing this, and that was in early 2000s. So,
yeah, was there something called a Hariba? That just popped in my mind. Somebody, I think Hariba, maybe. Maybe I'm screwed up. That may be some lap dance. I don't know. I don't know. I think it was a Hariba sensor, and it used I don't know, the wideband sensors were expensive. There was a front-wheel drive, it was a rear-wheel drive dyno jet, and I'd have to drive about 2 hours to find a dyno. we'd have to put a welded transfer case in the car to dyno the car front wheel drive on it.
Mm-hmm.
And the DSM back then, I think, made 447 or something. It was some record back then with a 20G turbo. And the air fuel ratios, looking back, I realized how stupid and dangerous it was. But with these, even in that car, was 13:2-1. And I don't imagine that the rear wheel drive was any better because, to be honest, when I ran the rear wheel drive and up to 2001, we still didn't have a wideband in the car.
And that was a race gas then, right? So,
yeah, race gas. We used to use Torco 118 NOS, I believe it was called.
Okay.
Smelled terrible.
When did you actually create Buschur Racing then? You said it was started off as Priority Motorsports or something. When did it become
Priority
Buschur
Performance? Racing? Probably, I don't know, maybe around 92.
Okay.
But I started building parts for the car. You know, I take the business back to when I started building parts. And the minute I bought a DSM, I started modifying it.
Mm-hmm.
So as far as I'm concerned, I've been in business working on the cars, modifying them since November '89 when I bought the first car.
Okay.
And I've been selling parts since shortly after that.
And you were selling tons and tons of parts because you were the first to the market and you're obviously setting all these records. So people were looking at what you were doing. Now, the trick is, like you said, there was not a lot of like internet presence. You don't Google this stuff. You know, Google wasn't a thing back then. And, you know, most of it was based off of your, whatever the
MDSO.
Yeah, so that like email list or newsletter thing. I mean, how did it grow so fast? Was it just the fact that there was so few people doing it? Like you were the only one?
Yeah, there wasn't a lot of people doing it. You know, the Hondas were big then. The DSM stuff, I don't know. There was a few people doing the DSM stuff. Like I said, Jeff Hill, he was out there about as early as I was. He didn't make a lot of parts. He sold a lot of our parts. He actually, I don't want to get this screwed up because I like Jeff, have a lot of respect for him. His father, I believe, owned a Gulf gas station, and I believe his father passed away. And he used to go under County Road Gulf. And then he turned that into more of a, I believe it was like a service shop with a regular gas station, more into Turbo Tricks was, you know, a performance-based shop like mine was.
Mm-hmm.
But the MDSOG made it grow, but it was all telephone calls. And, you know, I worked full-time in a steel mill, day shift from 7 to 3, and I would come home and work from 3 to, I don't know, I remember shoveling gravel in the driveway, so when people came for the shootout, because it was at my house, it was actually out of the basement of my house until 1998. And to give you an idea how big it was then, the last year of working out of the basement of my house, we did $960,000 in sales.
Holy cow.
So I worked full-time at the mill, answered phone. I took all the phone calls. We welded all the parts. My dad worked for me. I had a few other miscellaneous people that helped, like box parts and stuff. But my dad came to work for me. We did all the porting, all the welding, all the order taking. You know, we'd run to pick up the steel. We'd come back and weld it. We'd build all the motors. All this was on top of doing the steel mill all day. And, you know, it was almost $1 million of sales in 1998 in my basement.
And you had your brother helping you as well, or was that just you and your dad?
No, my brother was my dad retired in 96 from the steel mill, and I quit in 96, about 6 months after he retired. And I actually got pissed off at work and walked off the job. I told him, I don't need this. I only come in here for the health care, and I think I can manage that on my own, so I just walked out. So my brother was a full-time master tech for Goodyear. Very good mechanic. My brother's probably one of the top mechanics you'll ever find. He's fast. He's accurate. He's really an amazing mechanic. He was doing installs out of my dad's garage for me. So he was doing the stuff. He got paid completely on his own. I supplied the parts.
Okay.
So the year that I decided that I had just outgrown my basement, I was going to build a shop here in town, and I was just going to do parts sales and manufacturing like I was doing. And I asked my brother, hey, ever wanted to open your own shop? He's like, yeah, of course, who wouldn't? So I said, well, how big an area do you need? I'll add it on, and if you want to come and work there, you can just rent me the bays from me. So our agreement back then was, well, it was until we separated ways a few years ago, I got 10% of his gross, and he would buy all the parts from me. So whatever his labor was, I got 10% from, and then he had no other overhead other than that.
Okay.
And it worked out well because my brother did well here.
Okay.
But working with family doesn't work out. I'm a very, I want things my way. You know, it's my shop, so I guess I can do that.
Mm-hmm.
And My dad worked here. Him and I had a disagreement over President Obama. I did not vote for him. We didn't talk for 7 years. My dad quit in the middle of an argument from the shop. My brother and I butted heads because while he rented the area out there and it was Buschur Automotive, he was doing work for Buschur Racing. That's where the customers came in from. Mm-hmm. So I wanted things done one way. He would want to do something his other way. We got tired of arguing. He probably did the best thing that's ever happened, which was go do things on his own. And I send work his way. He sends work my way. We get along well now. Best thing we could have ever done was probably split ways, you know.
Okay. And so you started like your chain sharpening shop when you were 16. You know, as soon as the DSM came out, you started building parts for it. So do you think of yourself as an entrepreneur? Do you seek out like doing things on your own and running your own business? Is that something you look for?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And you quit the full-time job to work, do Buschur Racing, like as your, I guess, sole income. And that was not a slow transition, right? You just walked out of the job and just did it. Although you did have an established business doing close to $1 million of revenue already, right?
I was never planning on leaving the mill. Even with as well as the business was doing, it was still a hobby. Even though it made that much money, it was just, I opened the business, but never, I was doing it because it was fun, man. You'd have had to be involved in the shootouts back then. And the group of guys, man, we were just close buddies that would like get together and talk about cars and drink beer. And, we'd go out and street race. The shootout, the first couple of years, the best part of it was there's a road down the street from my house called Butler Road. They ended up nicknaming it Rubber Road because we would race all night long on this backcountry road out there flagging cars down. So it transitioned into a business and turned into this huge business just, I don't know, out of luck and passion, I think, man. And it still drives the business. Maybe not the luck so much, but the passion definitely makes this place grow. Like I got into the GTR market not until 2014. That's a hard market to get into.
Yeah.
And I love the car. And I think it shows the people. I get these, like you said, I got this. You said it before we started the interview. I've got this very brash personality. I'll tell you in a minute. I don't want to really get into the F word in this interview. I said I wouldn't, but I'll tell you, fuck you in a minute, and you can go somewhere else. Because I do this because I love the cars and I love to race still. I mean, it's 30 years of doing this. I'm 50 years old now. I'd rather have somebody I enjoy dealing with and go have some fun and race than I would to deal with somebody that's rich and just collect their money. I don't really care about that to this day. And I should, because I don't have a retirement fund anymore. Something else that made the business grow, and this is important for people that listen to this program, I only used to accept money orders and cashier's checks. So if you did business with me, you had to send me a money order through the mail, and I took your call and I wrote it on a piece of paper, and you got a piece of paper that I hand wrote on, like something I got from Walmart, like a little receipt you'd get from a flea market.
Receipt book,
And that's what you would get with an envelope and your order. And there was a UPS driver that he retired that used to pick up at the local hardware store. Actually, I met my wife at the hardware store by shipping all our packages UPS out of a local hardware store. When he retired, he went to work for the company that takes credit cards. And he approached me every time he'd see me. You got to take credit cards. You got to take credit cards. I was like, man, I don't want the hassle. He said, listen, just try it. Just give it a try. And if you don't like it, you're not really out anything. Okay. So he brought me the credit card machine. And the very first month, my business doubled.
Wow.
The second month, it doubled again. And the business absolutely snowballed. I mean, I'm talking beyond belief because I took credit cards. It was probably the number one key to making it. I don't know. It's probably the reason I walked off from the steel mill, because at that point, the business was so huge that just putting in my time for this stupid pension that I would have never got anyway. Let me go back to that real quick. These two guys, Dave and Ted, that were both at the steel mill closed. And my buddy Dave worked there for 20 years with no plan other than to do what every American does. They work for a corporation, they invest in their 401k, and they're going to get a pension. Well, the steel mill closed.
And the pension
2
disappeared.
years after I quit, it closed. My father lost his pension. So my dad put in 30 years there, and now he's stuck with this piss pension from the PBGC. the government took it over for $600 a month. That's what he gets for his 30 years of service in a hot-ass, filthy, dirty, smoky steel mill.
And that was and you had a 401k as well, or was it only the pension through them?
I didn't get anything because I left after 9 years.
Okay.
My 401k, I did leave the money in there, and I don't know if you want to hear this or not, but I was putting an engine together in an engine assembly room here, and I was listening to the radio when 9/11 happened. And the minute I heard those planes hit that tower, I said, holy crap, man. I ran up front and I called Fidelity Investments. The first plane crashed. I knew something was going on before the second one even hit. I called Fidelity and I told them I want to take all my money out of the whatever mutual funds that it were in. I don't know anything about that stuff. And move it into this fund. I remember it's called a GIC. It was a guaranteed insurance contract that paid like 6%, but it was a guaranteed 6%. How'd you like to get that now guaranteed?
Everybody would love that one.
Oh, yeah, I'd put money back in there. So anyway, the guy told me, he said, I don't know if you know, but a plane just hit the towers here. The stock market's closed. And I said, well, move the money. So I assumed that because I called, this money would get transferred. It was like $60-some thousand maybe. Well, the stock market was closed. I don't remember what day 9/11 was on. I think it was a Wednesday. Well, when it reopened Monday, I called to check my balance, and I had $30,000 left.
And then they moved it, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
So I took the money out, pissed off, put an addition on my old house, which was probably the second best investment I ever did. And one more time, I offered a retirement account here at the shop for the employees. Ted was the only guy that took place in it. My wife was working for me then, Renee, who I met at the hardware store shipping packages. She was putting money in it. We stopped doing it. I don't remember what the reason was. We stopped doing it through the shop, but I got dabbling in it once more, and I think there was some kind of stock market crash or something in 2008 again. Once again, lost half my money. I would never go back to that. My son's really, really involved. He's 18 in the stock market. He's doing really well. He trades his own stock. He trades currencies. Extremely intelligent kid. It's not for me, though.
It's not for me either. I did it for a long time, too, and then when I got out of the day job, I wanted to invest in myself and not other people. So that's the mentality I took in it. So
that's what I have now too. And my son wants to open he's got a really successful detailing business. The kid's 18.
Mm-hmm.
And last week he made $1,500 detailing cars, and it's all local in this small town. So he wants to put up a building now. And I told him, Zachary, just take the money that you have invested in this stock market and buy the building. No, I don't want to do that. I said, invest in yourself. Put the money back in the stock market later if you want to. Use the money now for yourself. And he can't grasp that. Maybe he's too intelligent to grasp it. I don't know, but he's 18. He won't listen to anything I got to tell him anyway.
Right. He should learn very quickly that real estate is the best investment you can possibly do, though.
I believe. It's funny because my original house I paid $60,000 for, and I lived there 15 years or so. And my goal was to be completely debt free by the time I was 40. I made that goal. The house, when I sold it, was appraised at $254,000.
Yeah, it's a good return. Mm-hmm.
It's a very good return. There's probably nothing else I've ever done that was as good as buying that house.
So what's the worst experience you've had in business?
My worst experiences are with people being not paying their bills. I've had multiple people screw me out of $15,000 plus that I've never been paid for. These are good friends that this should have never happened with. Mm-hmm. Other shops that owed us money, we ship their parts and they're supposed to pay on a weekly basis, that just told me, screw you, man, I don't have the money. Get in line with everybody else. I'd love to make a list of people that have done this. They're not worthy of the podcast, so I won't bring up the names, but being backstabbed by people that were best friends for 10 years or people you helped for 20 years, that when you finally, would like to call in a favor, like maybe get a transmission built, that tell you to wait in line. Those things to me are the most disappointing of all. I've had friends that became customers that I thought were, family, mm-hmm. that decided to take paths with other shops that were convinced that, Dave Buschur's an idiot because he's not an engineer. That, the people are the only disappointment I've ever had in my life, I think.
Okay. So you haven't been really, other than stock market problems, which everybody has, and just dealing with shit customers, which also everybody deals with. You haven't had any really bad business dealings where somebody takes everything or nothing of that sort, right?
No, it's impossible to take everything from me. I run my business maybe like I don't know, I'll even say it because everybody thinks I'm a redneck anyway. Maybe I run it like an ignorant redneck. everything that comes in here is paid for when it comes in. So most of my accounts are COD.
Mm-hmm.
I have no 30-day accounts.
Okay.
Well, UPS. I don't have 30-day accounts, and I don't give anybody a 30-day account. So it's hard for me to get screwed. When you sell me a part, and you can ask anybody in this entire country, nobody will ever tell you that I owe them a cent or that I did not pay my bill. So everything that comes in is paid for the day it gets here. There's a few exceptions maybe that, I pay when they send a bill with it because they don't want a COD. But like I'm looking at my bill box in front of me right now. I have a commercial loan statement right here, I think for the GTR. There's nothing else in my bill box. And I owe my GTR like most people do, or maybe not most, that's a different market. But, my GTR costs me $1,800 a month. I'm an enthusiast. I run on some credit for stuff like that too. But it's hard for me to get screwed. Nobody can close my business down because I pay my bills when they come in. And when I ship a part, it's paid or it doesn't leave the shop.
Awesome.
So I've gotten screwed by customers like this company that we ship, I don't know, probably $5,000 or $6,000 worth of parts a week. He got behind. After 4 weeks, my employee, Jared, that used to work here, said, hey, man, this guy owes us like $23,000. I don't think we should ship any more parts. He's supposed to pay every Friday. So I called him, and he said, yeah, sorry, I'll send you a check. Well, the check didn't come, but I started shipping parts again. And then finally he told me, I don't have the money. Get in line. I owe everybody. And I got stuck with a bill for $23,700. And that's happened. I can think of another one for 15, one for 17, one for 7,000. But, in the grand scheme of things, it's a fairly large business. It hurts to lose $20,000. It's, it empties your checking account and you're screwed. But next month, things are back to normal.
Okay. Have you ever doubted yourself and wondered if things weren't going to work? And how did you overcome that feeling?
I feel like a fairly ignorant person most times, probably because my actual education level is very low. High school. I did some trade school stuff. I took a welding class, stuff like that. But I think the only time I doubt myself is if I really start to concentrate on the business side of things. Like if I have a plan.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a plan. My plan is to come in tomorrow and make more power than I did yesterday. Because if I make more power tomorrow, somebody's going to call and buy that part. That's
a good plan to have.
That's the only plan I have, man. I want to go faster with whatever platform that I'm involved in. Okay. I've got really good guys working for me. I want to mention somebody else. Nick Ryan, he's my brother-in-law. He's been here 10 years. So I've got long-time employees here. I always have. And Nick's an ass buster, and he basically runs the entire shop. He's my sales manager, but he orders all the parts. He answers just about every customer call, deals with all the customers. I can't deal on the telephone. I hate even hearing a telephone ring. Just to hear one ring in somebody's house will make me go outside. I hate the telephone. So Nick is absolutely, I won't say he's not replaceable because I'm replaceable, but I would hate to see Nick or Ted leave here, or Dave, or my new guy, Mike. They're great guys. Like Dave and I took a 120-mile canoe trip a week ago. We just took off, and you think you'd get a text message, hey man, what do I do with this? Or, a phone call, hey, I got a problem. I don't get that. I could lead this business indefinitely, and the only thing that would happen, the sales would fall because I'm the only promotion and marketing for the shop. And the only way, I don't put sale ads out there. I go on the internet and talk about what we're doing, and I'm passionate about what I do because I absolutely freaking love cars. I go on the internet. I know it promotes me, and other shops have called me out because, hey man, you're on here promoting yourself. But to me, I'm not promoting myself. I'm just talking about the car stuff that I love to do. Mm-hmm. So it's not even a job. I go in the chat rooms at night because I just want to talk to somebody about cars because I love freaking cars, man. I buy car magazines. I got car subscriptions. Yeah, I got multiple cars. A lot of these guys that are in shops have never owned the cars. Every car we've had success with, I've owned. The DSM, the Evo, now the GTR. I've got a turbo Buick at home, a couple motorcycles, four-wheelers. If it's got a motor on it, I'm probably involved in it, out doing something with it.
And you take it to the extreme. You have I remember when you started building your own ethanol brewing facility to get your own fuel, right?
Yep. I got so involved. I have a customer, Keith Anderson. He contacted me. That's not his name. Sorry. Keith McDonald. He contacted me, wanted to tune an Evo on E85. I didn't know what E85 was. So this Keith was on me, man. Please try it. Please try it. So I think I tuned probably the first Evo on E85 in the country. And I was so impressed by this stuff. I was like, what the hell is E85, man? I don't even get it. It works like C16, and you said you got it for $1? So yeah, I got so involved in it, I started looking into it, and I got a federal permit for a small ethanol distill, or a small ethanol distillation plant, it's called. I filed for the federal permit. I built a still out of a well casing my neighbor Marv Linder got me. Like, he worked for an underground utility company. We built it out of a piece of 24-inch pipe. And then I bought the actual distillation tower from, it's a reflux still, from a company called Mile High Distilling. And now I've got a 100-gallon stainless steel pot that I distill in with an actual column that I built. And it's very productive. I have a local winery here that gives me discarded wine that he can't sell because it tastes crappy.
Uh-huh.
And I distill it. And I've got probably 300 or 400 gallons of, it's not E90, it's 90% pure ethanol. It can't leave my property because it's moonshine is what it is.
Uh-huh.
But the other 10% in it is water.
Okay.
So that's the one thing I haven't mastered, is getting the rest of the water out of it. You can run it like it is, but I would like to get the water out, and that's a very tough process for me. I don't know why I haven't quite got it yet. Maybe I haven't tried hard enough, but yeah, when I get involved in something, I go in, like my wife said, once you're in something, you're all in.
Uh-huh.
There's no halfway. It's all or it's nothing.
Okay. What's something you're doing right now that has you fired up?
TCM tuning for the GTR.
Okay.
The actual transmission tuning. Cobb is the company that I use for my tuning.
Mm-hmm.
And their TCM mapping actually sucks. And, this is one of those internet arguments that I'm not going to call out other people about, but everybody says they've been doing it for years and years. Well, Tim Bailey's a good friend of mine, and he can't figure it out. I've given him the maps and stuff now to help him with this stuff. But Cobb's mapping for the TCM is, you can do the wide open throttle tunings easy enough, and you can do a little bit of the drivability easy enough. But I got ticked off at how the cars drive and probably put 100+ hours in figuring out their tables, because the tables, most of them are mislabeled.
Mm-hmm.
So they're there, but they're mislabeled, which makes it even more confusing. So I've really been into getting these cars that drive. You'd have to drive one stock and then drive one with my TCM map in it. The difference is absolute night and day. And I've sold probably 50 or 60 of these tunes now. And many of these customers have replaced the tunes that they got from these shops that claim they've been doing the same thing. And I guess I'm getting at this point in my life where I don't need all this drama, but I'd like to take these emails calling out these other shops like, hey, man, that map sucked. It's not even close. So that's what I'm into now, and it's what I've been passionate about for the last few months.
And that TCM tune is on the access port, correct?
It is on the access port. Uh-huh. And the Pro Tuners, and there's the other, as a normal guy, you can buy the tuning software, Race Tuner software, I think it's called. Mm-hmm. They have access to it, but like I said, it's mislabeled.
Okay. And
some of the stuff is so far mislabeled that you wouldn't even think to look at it to try to figure out maybe the problems here. It's hard to describe because, I'm not a very smart guy. So this has just been through hours and hours and hours and hours of making notes. I got a clipboard next to me with like 10 sheets thick.
Well, you're reverse engineering it. So you're doing actual engineering work.
It's engineering work, but it's a very slow process because, I don't know, like I said, I like to call myself stupid, but I guess at the end of the day, perseverance will make me win.
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to quit.
Uh-huh.
So if it takes 100 hours and waking up at 2 o'clock in the morning, which my wife laughs, I'll get out of bed in the middle of the night and come back. She's like, what'd you go write down? So I've got a pad and paper, and I'll get up and write down notes, or I'll send myself an email now because my phone's there. So I guess the notepad's kind of obsolete, but there's nothing to get up at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, and be up for hours making notes and grabbing my laptop and, having a revelation, I guess.
So here's what's really cool. So earlier in this interview, you were talking about when you first got the DSM, and you were cutting and splicing little boxes to change signal voltages for water temperature sensors, and now we're to the point where you're reverse engineering the transmission tables on a transmission computer for a GTR, right? It's amazing the direction things have gone, and like what you've had to do and how you have, as a person, have evolved and how you've had to deal with these cars, right?
Yes. Now, let me put an interesting story in there. I'm not going to bring up the guy's name because I can't stand him. One of the biggest disappointments in my life is what this story's about, but I'm going to leave the name out of it. So I had a guy that worked for me for about 10 years. He was supposed to be my best friend. Decided he wanted to go do his own business, whatever. Took a lot of my customers with him. talked a lot of nasty stuff about how stupid I was and how the shop was going to close because without him running it. He was my sales manager. As a matter of fact, at this point, I will put him down to being a phone bitch. And before he left, I really truly believed that he tried to bury the business. My dad had warned me about him for years. There was a lot of stuff that we were selling for under what we were paying for. You know, it was his job to take care of this stuff. Mm-hmm. But he's an extremely intelligent guy, and I used to have an extreme amount of respect for the guy. Really loved the guy, actually, and wanted to love the guy even after he left here. But he burned those bridges, and there was no going back from the stuff. But anyway, he handled all the computer stuff. And at the time, you know, I never had any computer stuff in school. My extent of computers was turning on AOL email, and I could answer an email as long as nothing went wrong. And I'm not exaggerating. If anything went wrong in the process, I would have to go get this guy to help me with it. So, you know, I told you we were using the VPC. Well, the last year that this guy worked for me, AEM came out with the AEM for the DSMs, the EMS. The first board that was ever produced came here, and it was a circuit board with no box.
Awesome.
I mean, you had to wear a wrist strap with a ground cable to use it. And I remember watching this guy work for me, work through this stuff, and he started tuning it. Very intelligent guy. I still won't take that away from him. But morals and such like that definitely didn't go his way. So I relied on him for this, tuning the few cars that we did here. And he did tune the tube chassis car the last year that we ran it, the year I wrecked it. And he left. So when he left, when you talk about high and dry, the agreement was I would still pay him to tune cars. I would still pay him to tune this or build this product that he used to build for us. Well, I got blown off. And as things went, I realized that these rumors that I kept hearing that he denied, that he said, you know, they were factual because I could tell by the way I was being treated. Mm-hmm. So I was forced into picking up a laptop and learning how to turn the program on for AEM. And I mean, you talk about a quick learning process. So I had this really close friend, Mike Carter, that needed me to tune his car. And I was relying on this old employee of mine to do the tuning. Well, I couldn't get a hold of him. And Mike was here from Maryland at the time to get this Evo tuned. So I jumped in on it. And the car came out well. Mike was happy with it. It ran great. And we actually took the car by this guy that used to work for me's house. And I asked him to drive it to make sure that I did a well enough job that I could return this to my customer. That's how much I relied on, you know, this guy's intelligence and his technology and computer savvy and everything. And he drove it and he's like, yeah, man, the car drives really great. You did a great job on it. You know, awesome. So, you know, I left there feeling pretty proud. And from that day on, from my memory, you know, I never asked again. I made myself learn, you know, how to work this timing table, because up until then I turned some knobs on a VPC and I relied on this Todd Day for a chip in a 1990 DSM computer. So I was forced to learn it. And since that day, you know, when something comes up, because like I told you, if I'm interested in it, I will learn how to do it. I just, you know, I get thrown into it and I learn it. When the GTR came out, two good close friends of mine asked me to tune the GTR, and I feel like I really left the Evo out of this conversation somehow, which was a huge part of us, and it still is. And I don't want to discredit the Evo, but we kind of went from the beginning, and I jumped ahead, I guess. But these two good friends of mine told me that they would only buy a GTR if I'd work on it. They didn't want to go to this other ex-employee of mine to have it done. So the one was warned, and I saw the email that if the car came here, I was going to blow it up. And I got the email forwarded to me, and that was when I really realized that after all these years of really wanting to be this guy's friend, that everything I had heard was now in front of me in an email that I just read, and absolutely true. Well, Tim Bailey came in, and he was training me on how to tune this car, and Tim was sitting next to me going, dude, I cannot believe how quickly you picked this up. He said, I've never seen anybody just like grasp this and just, I mean, as soon as I show it to you, you're just moving through the program like you've been using it. Mm-hmm. So I guess I'm not a dumb guy. I like to say I'm a dumb guy, but if I love it, I learn it quickly.
But you know cars, So all you're doing is applying your knowledge of cars to basically a piece of software. And that's a lot of the thing is most of these tuning softwares are just different ways of looking at the same thing, you know? So you know it because you've done it your whole life, essentially.
Yeah, I guess that's true. We started with the Evos. Let me do that a little bit.
Yeah, let's talk about the Evo.
So the Evos come out in 03. We bought probably one of the first ones you could get. I got it in March of 03 as a red car. Kind of funny story about its technology stuff, which is kind of where you like to go with this whole thing, I think. When the car came out, we didn't really have a way to tune it. There was I wish I could remember the name of the platform, but there was another guy in the industry, Al Friedman. He was tuning these cars. The honesty of it, he did tune a lot of cars. They did go pretty fast, and they didn't really blow up. But the reality of it was the tuning was not very good. Once you start learning what is going on with it, there's just a lot of stuff that was left undone. Well, our car started making a lot of power, but we started really running into a lot of ignition problems, which at the time we didn't know was ignition. And this red Evo that we had, we put an AAM on. And we had nothing but problems with it, man. We couldn't set any records because we couldn't get the car to go down the track without misfiring. So we were approached by Apex, and they wanted to put the V-Pro on the car. So they came out. 2 guys came out. We put the V-Pro on. The car instantly made like an additional 100 horsepower and ran perfectly. And Jason Siebels, which is the guy who...
Pro EFI?
Yes, he developed AEM and sold it to AEM. He was working for AEM at the time, and I was trying to tell him, hey, man, something's wrong with the ignition stuff in this. Well, we actually ended up figuring out on our end. And it was a coil dwell setting that they had screwed up.
Okay.
So the Evo then got very quick, very fast for us. We ended up buying a wreck black car that we turned into our drag car. That was the first Evo to go 890s. And it was actually a race between AMS, who had gone some low 9s in, and us to be the first in the 8s. Mm-hmm. Well, the first time the car went 8s was at the shootout. And Martin was there, and all the guys were there. They had their silver Evo, and we were pitted, basically kitty-cornered each other. Well, as soon as we were listening to their car go down the track, and I can hear it going, they're fighting the same issues as we had. So I kept telling my brother, Dan, because he drove the black car, I was like, let me go help him. He's like, don't help him until we go 8s. Jesus Christ, man, just chill out. So the car went 895, and it was this huge, talk about getting a monkey off your back, man. Uh-huh. Here we got the cars running perfectly clean. So I walked over and I approached Martin. I said, hey, man, I'd like to help you out. We can make the car so it doesn't miss. And, he congratulated us. As a matter of fact, I think he was on the starting line. And if I remember, I ran across the track, and he's a lot taller, bigger guy than me. Uh-huh. I'm 200 pounds. He's bigger than me. I ran over and jumped him and wrapped my legs around his waist and was like hugging him going, yeah, you can't get it now, buddy. And he was happy for us. It was a big, big celebration. So anyway, we took the ignition off our car. I walked it over to him. We put the ignition on his car, and I asked for the AEM, and we actually went into his AEM program. I changed his dwell settings, and I don't remember if they ran 8s that day, but they did run the fastest that they'd ever run. And it felt really good to help those guys. But, as a team on our side, I was like, let me just go help them because, God, I can't stand to listen to this thing break up anymore. Uh-huh. And it's like, just wait. Can we please go 8s first before you go let them do it? Because they were ahead of us for so long. It was cool to do that. We ran a 881, I think, was the best out of that car at like 174 miles an hour or 172 miles an hour. And a mile per hour record, I think, stood for like 7 years.
Yeah, really long time. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a long time.
Yeah, and so that was actually kind of an era that was, that's kind of when I got started, when you were the big guy and AMS was your competition. You two were like the kings of the Evo world. And, I bought a lot of engines through you guys. When I started building up my business, I did it out of my garage, and I bought all your engines. That's how we did it for years and years and years. And so I've dealt with working with you guys, and that's, you guys were the go-to for everything. My first turbo kit was one of your turbo kits. So it's really cool to see, how you evolve this, into what it is today. And like,
that is cool because I don't even think I really realized that, to be honest with you. Like I said, everybody else handles the sales here but me.
Yeah. And it was a deal between me and my wife where I bought her engagement ring and she bought me the turbo kit.
That's a good deal.
So let's take a break a second. Before we continue on, I wanted to take a second and tell everyone about My Shop Assist. If you own or work for a performance shop of any type, take some time to think about how organized and efficient your operation is. Our goal at Do It For a Living is to tell success stories in the industry and to educate you, the listener, on how to be successful in your business. My Shop Assist is a cloud-based shop management system developed to address the common shortcomings shops have. It enables you to track hours, pictures, notes, and even parts on every job at your shop. Manage your techs with the built-in calendar and assign tasks to them. The jobs can be exported to QuickBooks for accounting and billing. Customers can log in online and follow your progress on their car and digitally sign your work orders. MSA was designed to be simple to use and will help anyone from a one-man shop to the top-performing shops in our industry. Check out the system for free at myshopassist.com. Moving on, I want to talk about your business itself. So, Buschur Racing, what do you guys all do? I mean, obviously you make parts. Do you also do service? You mentioned your brother used to do the service side of things. Is that still something you guys do? Tuning? Kind of tell us the things you do.
Okay, so we're an absolute full-service shop. Up until about 2 months ago, I've built every single engine that's ever left here. We did machine work with another company that's actually out of business now because the owner just died for about 30 years. And for those 30 years, I thought that the machine work that came out of this shop was absolutely the best that you were going to get from anywhere, but I'd never done business with anywhere else. So I'd have fallen out with this machine shop, and I'm sure there's people that want to interject what actually happened here, but had a falling out with this place, started dealing with some other machine shops, Cosworth, which, well, it's not Cosworth now, D-Sport is one of them. And actually, let me go into that real quick. We had an engine failure in a GTR, and the main bearings got wiped out of it. And this other machine shop took the blame for it and then left me with a $17,000 bill when he wouldn't do anything with it. So that was my actual falling out with this other machine shop. So I sent this engine to Mike Farrar, who owns D-Sport, to fix it. And he now owns all Cosworth's equipment. He bought off the Cosworth USA machine shop.
Okay.
When this engine came back here and we put it in this customer's car, the difference was so absolutely astounding. It's indescribable, maybe because my vocabulary is too low, but let me give you an idea how this happens, and then I'll go back to the business. I won't forget. I sit in the car when we finish a car with my laptop, of course, so we can get the car running quickly and efficiently so that it's not, washing down cylinder walls and stuff, because you want to get it running right immediately. Mm-hmm. So I'm usually in the car. Dave, my mechanic, is under the hood. He's watching for leaks, listening for weird noises. I'm trying to make sure the car starts quick and air fuel's dialed in so we're not washing cylinder walls down or whatever. When this first engine that we started from Cosworth came back here that Mike had done, I was sitting in the car and there was a feeling it had overcome my head, something's wrong. There's something wrong with this car. So my brain is trying to watch the screen and I'm looking, the fuel trims look good. Everything looks good. What's going on? So I look up, and Dave has his head around the hood, looking at me like, "What the hell's going on with this car?" And we're both looking at each other. So I shut it off because I know something's wrong. And I was like, "Hey, what's going on with this?" He's like, "I don't know, man. Something's not right." So I was like, "Man, everything looked right." I said, "Is there any leaks?" No. He said, "Let me put the car in air." So I'm sitting in the car goes up in air. He checks for leaks, puts the car back down. There's no fuel leaks. There's no oil leaks. There's no water dripping. What the hell's going on? So I started again. And when I restart the car, we both look at each other and say, "Holy crap, man. Listen how quiet it is." This engine was so quiet that it didn't make sense. There was no piston slap. There was no variable valve timing slapping around. It was quieter than stock, man. And this is a forged piston, extra clearance, high compression, big ass cam, big turbo. It was just quiet. So from that day, I was like, why in the world did I not change machine shops? Because I never knew. Uh-huh. When I'm told for 30 years, hey man, forged piston motors make noise and they use a lot of extra oil. It's how it is. Well, this is an old big block mentality, and it's what I was taught. And I'm going to say it publicly to some people that I'm sure out there are cussing me right now. I'm sorry. We did ship some engines out of here that probably use more oil than they ever should have. My education from my master machinist who's been doing this for 50 years was, that's how things are. Well, I'm going to tell you right now, that's not how things are. Now that we've switched, and Mike does some work for us, but we also have a shop here that does almost 90+%. Every engine that comes through here now, when we put them in a car and start it, it is still to this day, and it's been, a year now, I guess, since we switched. It's mind-boggling to me that you can build an engine with tolerances this tight with forged pistons that run, they don't season the cylinders like people think. They don't score up cylinder walls. They don't use oil. They don't clang. They don't clatter. It's, even you, Kevin, you bought engines from me. I'm sure some of them used oil and were loud, and I apologize. But this is, I guess, an old 1960 mentality. And it's, there's some motors out there now that I wish, looking back on, I would have warranted or even given money back on. But I was convinced, if something comes in here broke, I took it to the machine shop. I don't even disassemble it. I took it over there. They'd look at it. No, everything's cool. Okay, well, put her back together, and I'm not warrantying nothing. He said it failed from something else. I wasn't even the judge. And don't make it think like, I'm not making it sound like we've had a lot of engine failures. We have literally built, I would guess, 2,000 4G63s over the year. Yeah. And of those, maybe 100 failures. I guess if you added them all up, stuff that's happened, 100 out of 2,000 is, I don't know what the percentage rate is, but it's pretty damn low.
Yeah. And what's interesting about that is, too, and I have found this in my experience dealing with a lot of the stuff, is when you're shipping engines to other people, especially to the end user to install themselves, I would bet a lot of those failures are not even anything that you or your machine shop did. A lot of them are like spun bearings. Like, it takes a really long time to learn that, you need to replace literally everything that has oil in it, because if you don't, you're going to get bearing material in the new engine, and that's going to ruin it. And I know personally of several people that have had engines that we have installed from you, or they installed themselves from you, that have failed because they did a improper job of cleaning everything. Like, a good example is, I know a guy who had he had one of your engines, and he had his valve cover powder coated. Well, everybody knows where I'm going with this is. The baffles. Yeah, you glass bead or blasting material inside the baffling, and he went through 3 engines. I think the first 2 he blamed on you, and then the third one was his own, and it went bad. And he finally just decided, what is going on? And for some reason or another, he took the baffling out, and sure enough, there was just piles of sand or whatever it was inside the valve cover baffling. And he finally, it clicks, oh shit, I blame Buschur for this stuff. Yep. I screwed it up. Look how much money this has cost me. And it just things like that you have to learn by doing. And fortunately, the internet does allow you to learn some of this stuff without making the mistake. But
it's a funny story about dirt in a motor. When I told you about the Evo misfiring when we first started, we were also going through engines like it was our job. I have a really good friend, Matt Smith. I don't know how many engines we put in this guy's car, and I warrantied them all. No, actually, I think he paid for the first few. And then after that, I don't know how long I put motors in his car, cheap or no charge, to make it up for him, because we were idiots at the time. So let me tell you what happened. The DSMs didn't have a real oil cooler on them. The Evo came with this nice, big, fat oil cooler on it. Well, that oil cooler is impossible to clean. I don't care what you put through it, or you sonic clean it, or you spray it, or you could get a Massengill douche and run through it. You can't clean it. So we were blowing up. We were running through rod bearings on this race car that we had weekly. Now, we've been building 4G63s by that point for 15 years. How in the hell can we not keep a rod bearing in it? Well, the reason is we were building new motors, putting it in the car, having the oil cooler cleaned, and putting it back on the car. We took the oil cooler one day, my brother did, and he put it in our shop sink. When he went to pick it up, this was after it come back from sonic cleaning. When he picked it back up, there was metal in the sink. So he comes and gets me, he says, hey, check this out. So at that point, we eliminated the oil cooler, and we put 2 plugs in where the oil cooler lines where we plugged them. We never lost another engine after that minute. The one year at the shootout, the rod bearings were going. This guy that owned the machine shop from across the street, we had no choice. We were going to run this car at the race. During our open house, there were probably 1,000 people at the shop. The car was on the lift with the oil pan off. He was over here with a file. He filed the rod journal with a hand file until he could get the bearing to go in at a 10 over bearing on a standard crank. We run the car that weekend, and we actually, I don't know how we did, but we did well that weekend. I think we won the class, or maybe we set a new personal best. But the reason we lost engines after engine after engine was that damn oil cooler on the Evo. So like you said, I've had a lot of engines that I know customers blame me on, stuff like that. I don't know how many we found glass bead under. One of the typical one is under the baffling in the valve cover. The other one is a lot of people glass bead cylinder heads. We will not do that because you cannot get all the glass bead out of that cylinder head, so we refuse to do it. We'll tank them, and soda blast works, but you cannot glass bead sandblast a 4G63 cylinder head or the valve cover. You're going to lose a motor.
Yep.
Okay, so back to what we do. So we build all the engines here. Ted does every single head that's been ported here for the last 13 years. He ports every single head. He does about probably 60 heads a year. He does one a week on average, and if he has to catch up, he'll do more. But we do at least 52 heads a year. I would say probably closer to 70, especially now with the GTR requiring 2 heads. So we do everything we manufacture, we try to do in-house. So we buy our intercooler cores somewhere else. We manufacture. There's a local place that bends our tanks for the cores. They're all welded here. They're all U.S.-made cores. I use Garrett and Bell. All the exhausts are built here. We have this. I build every prototype that leaves here. So every intercooler pipe, down pipe, whatever, you name it, that's ever been built. I built the prototype. We send it to somewhere to have copied to be bent. Then it comes back and we build fixtures. Everything's welded here in-house. Yeah, it's full service. Like, I don't know. We probably had one of the first dynos around here. I had a 2-wheel drive dyno jet. I hated it. You could tune the car on that thing and go to the track, and the tune wasn't close. I sold it. A guy actually linked 2 of the big, I think it was a 248 dyno. He linked 2 of them together, bought ours used and bought another one used. I've got a 500 single eddy current all-wheel drive dyno. Love the Mustang dyno. So you drop the car off here, and it's, we do the whole thing start to finish, and it's here. I don't have anybody to blame. So if something's wrong, it's all done here.
Okay. And the building you're in, how big is it?
It varies. We've done 2 additions since I've been here. I guess it's maybe 4,500 square feet or something. I don't know. I never thought about it.
Okay. Do you rent it or do you own it?
No, I own it.
Okay.
I own it outright.
And
so the one thing I don't do, I don't make investments. I guess like you said, I guess that's a good way to say it. I invest in myself. Our shop's paid for. The land the shop is on is paid for. My house is paid for. We own some other property, really rural, so I can get out of here in the mountains in southern Ohio. That's paid for. I owe on my truck and I owe on my GTR. I believe in being debt free.
Okay.
So there's, everything's paid for.
Good. And anybody who's been to the shootout has been to your shop in downtown Wakeman. It's not a very big city, but if I remember correctly, the machine shop you were using was like literally right across the street, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, it's directly across the street. I don't use them anymore, and I would recommend anybody that thinks, well, they're closed, so it doesn't matter.
And so now you're shipping blocks to Mike at D-Sport? Is that?
Yeah, some go to D-Sport, but the reality of it is I was using Mike for a while because I didn't have a choice.
Mm-hmm.
We've got another machine shop that's about an hour, maybe hour and a half from here now, and the quality of that machine work is, I'm going to put it with what we saw from Mike the first time.
Okay.
And these, I just switched the motor in my GTR. Now, while I'm bad-mouthing our old machine shop, we have set tons of records, and I've got engines out there that probably are 200,000 plus miles on them at this point. They stayed together. Mm-hmm. They just weren't the quietest, and you have to throw an extra quart of oil in more often than you should. They worked. But this stuff now, man, like the catch can, like to give you an idea, like my GTR now, I don't know how much it makes, in excess of 1,000 on our Mustang.
Mm-hmm.
To see something in the catch can on a GTR from an engine we build here now is non-existent. And ours don't recirculate. It's a catch can. It pulls absolutely 100% of every ounce of oil vapor, oil contamination that you would get in the intercooler and intercooler pipes out and catches it in the can. But the engines are so tight that, if you have to dump one of these cans once a year, I'd be surprised.
Yeah, that's a big change from the way, and even the Evos, I think, are still, at least the road racing ones we deal with, they still fill a lot of oil into them.
They do. And our catch can on the Evo actually recirculates back to the to the crankcase because of that.
Yep. Okay, so how many employees do you have there?
There's Dave Davis, Mike Lester, Nick Ryan, Ted Harrison, and myself. So there's 5 of us.
And you guys have all, everybody other than one of them has been there for a very long time, right?
Yeah, Dave's the shortest. He's been here probably 5 or 6 years now. And Mike, I just hired him. I needed another mechanic and a kind of a do-all guy. I'd actually hoped my son was going to take the business over. He was my retirement plan. And like my father and brother, he decided probably working with me isn't the best idea. So he started his own business. I'm proud of him. But I had hoped he was going to take this over, pay me rent, and I was going to leave.
Yeah, I've met him at the shootout that we had, the dinner at Pizza Hut after the end of it, and I talked to him for a while when we were there. So, yeah, he's definitely a smart guy.
Very smart and very advanced. Since he was 3, people were like, he's a little man. And he's always been like that. He's a very independent, intelligent young man.
So he's applying what you've taught him to his own sort of business now too, huh?
I don't know if he would claim that, and I won't claim it for him.
Okay.
So
hopefully in maybe a couple years here we'll be interviewing him then, huh?
yeah, hopefully in a few years he'll look back and say maybe I did something for him, but that might not happen now. We get along well. Good relationship. You know, we play racquetball together and ride motorcycles, four-wheeling, and very good kid. I have a beautiful daughter, too. She's real good.
And so you were able to remain successful while many of your products are built in-house and shipped to other people. So we kind of touched on this a little bit. You had a dealer network, and I was one of your dealers, or I still am. I still buy stuff through you guys, even sent them a PO yesterday. But did having that dealer network help you grow your business? Like, is manufacturing parts is obviously important, but selling them through other people, taking a little bit less profit margin on it, does that make it easier for you?
I'd like to say yes, man, but there's a lot of downsides to that. And I think part of that, I was showing Mike, the new guy, yesterday, some of the old brochures and stuff, and like a sticker that we had. We had a sticker that was directed at a shop in the early 90s. It copied a bunch of our stuff. It said, innovators, not imitators. And I think when you're innovating parts, someone is going to come and copy them. Mm-hmm. Because if you're the first guy that makes a front mount for a DSM, and I'm the only place that can get it, and another shop wants it, and maybe I don't like that shop and won't sell to them, someone's going to make that part. So in the early 90s, it was really frustrating because, I don't know, you felt like you were really an innovator. You're the first guy to put a front mount on this car. Now it's not so much. It's hard to really come out with an absolutely unique product now. Uh-huh. Like you had mentioned in passing the battery tray fiasco. When the Evo came out, the intercooler pipe on that thing looks like an octopus leg or something. I could not stand the thought of trying to make this intercooler pipe twist through there. So we built a small battery and a short routed direct intercooler pipe. It was beautiful, cleaned the whole engine bay up. Mm-hmm. Well, my ex-employee that I was speaking of earlier told me that is stupid. Nobody's going to buy that. Who's going to buy a battery to put an intercooler pipe in? I said, well, they can buy it or not buy it. But I'm not going to leave that big 30-pound battery in there when I can put a 15-pound battery in it and an intercooler pipe that has 3 bends instead of 13. Within 2 months of doing this, everybody had a battery tray, and everybody got rid of the stupid intercooler pipes that they were building and did a direct intercooler pipe. So, it was an innovation at the time for somebody to look at it now and go, so what? I made a short route intercooler pipe. Well, you copied my idea. I understand it's not, groundbreaking. I didn't invent, the cure for cancer, but when you're the first guy to do it and everybody else does it, it's very aggravating. So one of my dealers got dropped because a customer of mine bought a battery tray and complained to me that it fit like crap. So he sent it to me, and I said, that's not even my battery tray. It looks like it, but the battery doesn't fit. So when we start looking closer, we can realize that this is a copy because the metal is not the same. So our aluminum looks like it came right off a sheet. This was like blasted with something. So I asked a friend of mine, you know him because we already talked about him, to call and order this battery tray. So this friend of mine called this scumbag, who was a dealer of ours, to order the battery tray. And you have to understand, this guy was buying a lot of parts, a lot of engines. I taught him a lot about tuning. He was a nobody that wanted to get in the business. I really liked the kid. I helped him out. He got successful. And then rather than just buy our battery tray and make whatever, let's say 30% on it, he decided to have it done in California and copy it. So he told this friend of mine who ordered this battery tray was on back order. I said, they're not on back order. I got 50 of them on my shelf. So this was proving the fact that, yes, he was producing them. Mm-hmm. So eventually he got the battery tray, but what he got was a used one. You could still see the bolt circles in it. So I said, hey, man, send it back. Tell him you can see it's used and you want a new one. So he sends this used battery tray back that was sold as new. Weeks later, he finally gets the battery tray that is absolutely a copy. Well, I did a YouTube video about it, calling the guy out. Made some comments in there about who made it. It wasn't meant to be racist. That's how some people took it. I said something about being made by an illegal Mexican or something. The point was it was made in California, cheaper than he could have got it from me. Anyway, it come across wrong. So the video had good reviews, bad reviews. But as far as the vendor went, I dropped it. Mm-hmm. After that, we made a paper that we sent out to all our vendors, making them understand if there was any products that they produced that even remotely resembled stuff that they were buying from us, we would drop them. Mm-hmm. And since then, we probably had to drop 10 dealers. Last week, I dropped a company because of the double pumpers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was going to say the double pumper is another one that there's probably 50 different clones of it, and I still think yours is the best. And like I said, my order that I made yesterday was another one of those. So
yeah, it's not really understandable because the markup on them is pretty good, and we do a good job keeping up on it. And this company that I dropped last week argued with me how much time he had in figuring it out. I don't know what you had to figure out. You bought 50 of them from us before. The part is in front of you. What did you have to figure out exactly? So it's, I will drop a dealer in an instant now, and I don't really care about expanding our dealer network. On the Evo stuff, I don't think I would expand it at all. I do give some shops dealer pricing just to help them out. I don't know that I don't advertise them as dealers anymore. Mm-hmm. Now, the GTR stuff, it has helped us in the GTR business dealing with people like SBD and Jack's Transmission mm-hmm. because they're so big compared to what we were 2 years ago. Uh-huh. By getting those guys involved, they really love our parts, Jack especially. And by getting them involved and getting our parts out there, it has really, really helped us to grow in the market.
Awesome. Okay. And you guys are based out of Wakeman, Ohio, which is obviously not a very populous area.
900 people.
So
the day of the shootout, the population over doubles.
Oh, I believe it. There's that track is filled, it seems like. I mean, it's a very, very well attended.
Have you been here for the open house?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. You can't even park anywhere.
Yeah, the main highway that comes through town, it's an interstate highway, goes from coast to coast, Route 20. We have to get police. They block it off the barricades, and the entire town is absolutely filled. I mean, every year we have an East of Chicago. We have a Subway. We've got a new little restaurant, the Brew Pot, really good food there. Subway, East of Chicago, absolutely completely run out of food. They have no dough. They have no bread. The town can't even handle it.
So you warn them that from now on that you're coming for this weekend.
We do warn them now. Yep.
Okay, so you're in Wakeman, Ohio, and so people are shipping you cars all over the world. Has your location ever been an issue, or it has, like, obviously shipping vehicles and shipping parts and engines, has that kind of been okay for you, not really been an issue?
No, it's actually excellent. I'm not a big people person, so this may help or hurt me in this podcast. I don't know. I like that that the shop is very quiet. So most of the cars that we get in just get shipped in. We do email, whatever we have to do to get the car done right, and then the car ships out. I can't imagine having to have another. If you're in a populous place, you would have to have a full-time employee just to handle foot traffic to come in and out of the building all day. Mm-hmm. It's really nice. I'm in a small town, so I like small towns. The other place where we own property is 10 miles from a place that has a donut shop and a Family Dollar and one gas station. That's it. So I love being rural. I'm like a backwoods kind of like. Yeah, I like to be outside in the woods where it's quiet. That's what I enjoy doing. So it's nice to be in a small town. I don't think it's hurt us, but there are a lot of people. I'll talk to people on the internet. I do hundreds of emails a day. And, if somebody has a hard time finding a shop, I'll tell them, well, just ship me the car. Oh, man, we'll drive it over. You drive, run over and grab a $90 flight back to New York. Man, it's so far. It's it's like eight hours. Well, just ship it. So I'm sure we lose some sales on installs like that. Mm-hmm. But that's really not a bad thing either, because we've got 3 bays here. We've got 5 bays, actually, but 3 of them have lifts in them. I can only handle so much work, and I don't like a customer's car to sit outside. So There's some other shops that like to brag that they have, 28 GTRs there. You can't work on 28 GTRs. Yeah. A GTR is a complicated car. Unless you're doing just a full bolt-on package that you can knock out in 3 days. If you're doing an engine and trans, that car's probably at your shop for 2 months. Yeah. And when we put the car on the lift, the subframes have to come out. The car sits. So my lift is now married to that car for 2 months. So I can't take that many cars in the first place. So it would be nice to have dealer networks or someone you can refer a car to. Like, we refer work over to Ivy, and we refer a lot of work to Jack's. There's a few other people around that I trust. But I'd rather just send a motor to another shop and let the guy go there and install it than have to wait in line to be here 3 months from now. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I have that problem having too many cars and not enough time to do them.
I can't do that. I won't dedicate to that. Right now, I think there's 7 or 8 GTRs here. It's way more cars than I want, and we just kind of got hit with it. Luckily, I think 3 of them are done. The other 2, they're going right on time, so it's okay. But it's the GTR thing is a complete different game because the amount of time that it takes to coordinate the whole build, and I don't think I've ever had a GTR yet that came in, and even the Evos, where, you know, like last week I had a car that dropped off, super nice guy, he was going to get an engine and turbos. Before he left, it was engine, turbos, cams, full trans build, front drive shaft, billet front diff. So now it went from you had everything in stock, which is how we do it. So if you call us, we take your complete order. We get all the parts here. 100% of the parts in stock for your build. Then we'll call you. We'll take 50% for the build. You bring the car. We have everything in stock. The car gets knocked out quickly. When the engine goes back in the car, we take another 25%. When the engine is in the car and running, and then when the car is done on the dyno, everything's finished and approved, we take the last of the build.
Mm-hmm. I do a very similar method for me. It seems to work out very well that way.
Yeah, I never use somebody else's money for their build. Matter of fact, I bring almost all their stuff in first before I take money down.
Mm-hmm.
So like this job that just came in, you know, we thought we would be done with it in less than 30 days. Well, now we're waiting on axles. That's going to be 3 weeks. We got to wait on the transmission parts come in from Jax. That's going to be a week probably. That's fairly quick. Now we got to wait on machine work for the heads and to get them ported. So now this job you thought were going to be done a month and the car would be gone is going to be here 2 months, and the car is now camped out on the lift for 2 months.
Mm-hmm. Scope creep. That's what they call it in the engineering world.
What's it called?
Scope creep. So the scope of your project has creeped way beyond what it originally was supposed to be.
Exactly. And it's a good thing. I mean, you know, it's nice to have the sale, but it throws the schedule off.
Mm-hmm. You know, we touched on this already. So you are obviously the first to do so many products, especially with the Evo. And your products have been copied. Have you ever, like, looked into patenting stuff, or have you ever taken other approaches to it? Or is it just one of those things that you're like, fuck it, nothing I can do about it, and just keep making it and keep selling it? And, I mean, what is there or anything have you tried to do about it?
Well, after the first few things had gotten copied, like back in the DSM days, I looked into patents. And I don't know who I talked to for a patent attorney at the time, but their advice was that there could be such a small change of something, like let's say the front mount. Mm-hmm. Let's say I wanted to patent that first front mount. Well, if the next guy came out with one that was 6 inches taller, he didn't copy your patent then. Mm-hmm. I can't patent an intercooler. Somebody else made it. So I'm just trying to patent the fact that it fits a
design patent. Uh-huh.
It's very, very difficult, I believe, for anybody to patent something as a whole for the aftermarket. You have to come out with something like completely unique. Like an example that I'm going to use right now is like the Holley fuel mat.
Uh-huh. Yeah, the hydromat. Uh-huh.
Awesome. Yeah, the hydromat. Hopefully that thing's patent because it is really cool. I bought some of them and I built a fuel system for my own GTR. It's something I probably shouldn't even be talking about it. It's something we were going to put on the market for months, but I wanted to make sure it was absolutely fully tested. But I'm running a set of twin 485s in my car. Those hydromats, there's no way they can come uncovered from fuel. I put the tip of that thing in a bucket and suck fuel out of it. You know,
just
the whole
to try it, right?
It's incredible. It's really an incredible product. So something like that you can patent, but I don't know, what are you going to do? Patent a catch can? I think we've definitely got the best catch can out there for the GTR. I don't care what anybody says. Nobody else is on the market works. So what are you going to do? Patent it? I don't know how the hell you're going to patent that thing. So no, I guess at this point, I'm just like what you just said, fuck it.
And what's cool about it, though, is when you are the first person to do it, when people do copy you, it does, I guess, for lack of a better term, validate your design, that it works. And it works so well or sells so well that people want to copy you. You know, I mean, that's kind of...
Absolutely. That catch can is going to get copied. I'm just waiting to see who the first guy is that does it.
Okay. So I wanted to kind of switch directions a little bit here, and I want to talk about the shootout. So... You know, we kind of talked about the early days of it, and you keep raising the level of this thing every year. And I haven't been to it in the last 2 years because of scheduling conflicts with other events that we attend, but I'm trying to make it out this year. But I have been there for a couple years, and it is huge. I mean, you have a ton of cars racing there. Kind of give us an idea. Does that really, like, kind of bring customers to you and kind of validate the business more? Kind of give us some background into, like, why you keep doing it and how successful has it become?
You got my brain going 1,000 directions on this. Okay, so first, I'm not going to take credit for the shootout growing. The shootout has grown because it is a family affair, man. It's something beyond me, beyond my shop. I'm proud to be a part of it. I'm glad I started it. I'm glad I get to do it every year. I truly, this is arrogant thought. I truly believe that if I decided tomorrow, piss on it, I'm not going to do it anymore. Well, I know for a fact that Norwalk will not do the event with anybody else. That's actually in a contract, and I had Bill's word. He would not do this same event with somebody else. I believe the event would probably die. Someone else would try to take it over because there's been copies. I've had a couple people that don't like me. One of them actually did the event on the same day one year.
Mm-hmm. I remember that fiasco.
Yeah, their turnout sucked. Ours still grew by like 150, 200 people that year. They never did theirs again because it was a flop. But the event grows because of the people that come here. It's a mind-boggling thing to attend because the camaraderie at it. It's a party, man. And it's a party to the point where it's an embarrassment for my shop because I have to live here all year. You know, it's nothing for somebody to go to Arby's and change the letters on their sign to come and get big meat or something like that. And, you know, they put jet skis and swimming pools, do burnouts with pit bikes in hotel rooms. I had to do it's a zoo. I'm proud of it, but I'm not proud of that part of it. I had to do probably 5 years of meeting with the chief of police of Norwalk and the track owner over what we were going to do about these children that can't behave when they come here. And I finally told the chief, I said, I'm done with these meetings. I'm done with them. I'm not their dad. I'm not even at the hotels. I drive through to check out what's going on. I'm at the racetrack in my house. Next year, if you have a problem, I don't want to hear about it. Arrest them. The next year, there were 23 arrests.
I did not know this.
Yes. And every year it's something. You know, I don't know. You know, people come and they have a good time and alcohol gets involved. And I'm the same way. You know, I'm going to have a good time and I'm going to get loud and I'm going to start swearing. But I don't want to go get in the car drunk and go do a burnout. And I'm not going to take a pit bike in a hotel room and do a burnout on a carpet. I'm not going to ride a garbage can down 3 flights of steps and cut my leg open. Some of it's just asinine. So that's the bad side, and now I'm done with the bad side of the shootout. It's embarrassing for us because we have to live here. You know, I tried to get a hotel room. One more real quick for D-Sport. And I called the lady and tried to get, like, you know, hey, you know, I fill up your hotel room every year. Could I get a little better rate? I got 4 rooms I need to rent. She said, yeah, you fill our hotel room. But then we have to hire a cleanup crew and extra security because these guys don't know how to act. So that's the negative side and the only negative side of the race. And it's a very few small percentage of the attendance. Mm-hmm. So the event has grown because people love it. If you come once, chances are you're going to come again and you're going to bring a friend. And their friend is going to love it so much that they're going to bring a friend. So last year, the attendance at the event over the 3 days was like, I should probably look it up, but like 8,400 people.
Wow. That
is a big event. And it's turned into where we can't run everything on a Sunday like we used to. When it started, up until we had about maybe 16 cars that would show up. And this is funny, too. When the event started, everybody that came had a car. Yeah. So we had 4 cars, then 8 cars. You know, maybe you had your girlfriend with you. And then, 47, then 96. Well, then the racer count leveled off at maybe 230, 250 cars. And then it turned into a spectator event. So last year, maybe we had, I don't know, I'm just going to throw a number out there. Let's say we had 250 race cars. We had 8,400 people attend the event. Mm-hmm. So it's a huge spectator event now. But it's grown. I don't want to take any credit at all for it growing. I try to manage it based on what the market shows. Like, so maybe I'll get stuck on all cars should have internal wastegates. Well, that's my viewpoint, but all these other people are making external wastegate headers. This is a silly example, but it's something that pertains to the race. So if I stick with my ways and don't allow people that come that maybe buy products somewhere else and we don't offer that product, the classes can't grow. Mm-hmm. So in order to grow the class, you have to stay every year with changing the rules slightly to compensate for, okay, maybe this year everybody's running a great big drag radial that's out of the tire size. Or maybe this class doesn't even want to run a radial anymore. They want to run slicks. So the event has grown into this massive, I don't know, I hate to say lifestyle event because I don't believe in doing hot dog races and bikini parties. Like, Nopi, I got way off subject again and I'm sorry, but Nopi and NHRA ruined the import racing. I'll just put that right out there. They wanted to turn it into these lifestyle, I don't know, it was a circus. Uh-huh. And
Yeah.
I hated having to wait in a hot car in the staging lanes in a funny car suit to make a pass because some girl, and I love women, buddy, let me tell you what, and naked ones are even better, with their bikini contest. It doesn't belong at the racetrack. I have racers that are sweating their ass off and worked all year to race. They don't need to wait for a hot dog race or you know what a hot dog race is?
No idea.
Okay, so you put two cars on a starting line staged, and the two drivers get out and they foot race to the 60-foot line. They eat a hot dog, drink a Coke, and then run back to their car and run the track. That's a hot dog race.
All right.
And they exist, and they're popular. I don't have time for that crap, and neither does anybody that's worked hard all year. They want to, you know, I respect the guy that built the car, even if it's not my parts. You know, there's guys out there going sevens with all-wheel drive DSMs now, man. They deserve a handshake because I gave up on that crap when I broke stuff at 11 O's. So ask me the question again so I could get back. Cause
you keep bringing the level of it up every year, and you know, does it keep bringing customers to you, and does the community, like, how does the community take it, and you know, like, how do you keep evolving it?
Okay, so the customer side of it, I don't know that it brings a lot of customers here. I think we make customers by just meeting them, and you know, I got this really asshole persona about me that people think until you meet me, and they're like, even talking to me now, I feel like I come across different, and I'm not putting on a show, but this is just me. It's not the internet. If you meet me in person and, you know, have a beer with me, I would say that 99% of the people that walk away will go, man, you know, maybe he's a little bit aggressive and honest, but yeah, he's a pretty good dude. So I think we gain customers like that, and meet Nick and Ted and the guys here, we gain customers. But as the whole, the shootout is like a complete different, I think the word I want is entity. It's something completely different from the business at this point. When it started, it was part of the business, and now it's just this massive thing of its own. And the community here, I don't know if you mean locally or the community.
I mean, like your community, as in like your neighborhood, your the track, you know, the restaurants and all the businesses around there. Do they take well to that?
Yes. Now everybody here in town really loves it. The first few years that we closed the street off, I'll give you an example of a poor business manager. One of the businesses in town here didn't like that we closed the streets because she lost her customers. So I called her because, you know, I got to live here all year, and asked her, you know, what can we do? Well, nothing. It's ridiculous. They want to come in here and use my bathroom. And I said, okay, well, she said, and then they come out of the bathroom and they stand in here with the cooler door open trying to figure out what they want to drink. And I said, okay, so hold on a minute. People are coming in to use your restroom, but they're buying something while they're here. Now, this is a very small grocery store that's here on the corner. Well, it's gone now. They're out of business. And I said, okay, listen, let me do this. How much do you make a day? She said, what's that supposed to mean? I said, how much do you bring in on I think it was a Saturday then. On a Saturday. She says, I don't know, like $200. I said, okay, let me do this. I'll give you $200, and you could just close for Saturday and take a day off. She said, I'm not going to do that. I have customers that need groceries. I said, okay, I'll give you the $200. I mean, all they had to do is walk a little further because the road wasn't closed off that far. So I said, can't you, you know, she says, and they don't want to use debit cards. Well, I don't use debit cards. I only take cash. So as this conversation went, it ended with me telling her, I cannot fix stupid. If I can't give you $200 to help you make up for the profit you'd lose, and you're not going to take debit cards, and you're mad because somebody holds the cooler door open to use your restroom, you know, on their way out of the, because it seemed like they all went in and used the restroom and bought something like out of appreciation. I told her I can't fix stupid, and the conversation ended there. I never spoke to her again. Within a year, they closed.
I wonder why.
Other than that one lady, I don't think there's any problems. All the local people kind of come by and walk around the car show. Mm-hmm. You know, we've been here our whole lives. And the businesses appreciate it because, like I told you, Subway sells out. East of Chicago sells out. The other small restaurants in town do well that day. The gas stations do well.
What's the Mexican restaurant we eat at every time, too?
Casa Fiesta. That's in Norwalk. Now, that's 12 miles from here, so that's not my...
Okay.
As far as they go, I never hear anything from appreciation from Norwalk, and those hotels are booked to the gills. They all know what they're booked for, and you know, you don't get a phone call from that. It's unusual, as you know, in any industry to get somebody to just cold call you and say thanks. And I don't really care anyway. Whatever, if they profit off of it, good for them. I could care less.
Okay, so give us an idea. How many hours a week are you actually working still?
I'm pretty blessed, man, because I can leave the shop. So I would say I'm in here at 9 o'clock in the morning. most days I'm gone at maybe 3:30, and most of that's because I picked my daughter up. It was my son and daughter, but now my daughter after school, and I head home. But we're open 9 to 5 anyway.
Okay.
We don't work any weekends. We took off most holidays. If the bank's closed, we probably close too. You know, I think it's good appreciation to pay your guys for a day off randomly. You know, the guys work hard, man. I have no stress here.
Good. So you're actually pretty like close to 40 hours a week then is all you're having to do anymore.
Yeah, I'd say. But see, now, here's something else, and maybe my guys here don't even see it. When I leave here, I'm not done working. I'm on the internet because I love cars.
Mm-hmm.
So y'all pass it off in this conversation that I'm working. But the reality of it is I'm probably on the internet just because I'm enjoying, you know, looking at forums and talking about cars. So it's nothing for me to be, you know, I'll go home and mow the grass, and I've got a lot of animals. We got pigs and sheep and goats and chickens, and you know, I got a sawmill at home. I cut my own lumber for projects. I got my still I run. I'm in all kinds of stuff.
A man of many trades.
Yeah, when I sit down at night, you know, I'm on the internet, and, you know, I've got a 24-hour tech line that you can text me a question 24 hours a day. And if my phone goes off and it's on that tech line, I'm going to answer it.
How does that work? Do you bill people for that, or is it just a service you offer?
Nope, it's just a service.
Okay.
You can ask me a question about any install, any of our products, and it's actually through an app called, let me look and tell you what it is. Text Now.
Okay.
I don't take phone calls on it, but I will take a text message through there, and we advertise a number on our Facebook page and our main website. I will take a question on there. If I see it, I'll take it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. But it's because I love the freaking car, man. It's not really a job. You know, if a guy buys something from me, it's, hey, man, I got a problem. Where's this bolt go? Send me a picture, and I'll tell you where the bolt goes.
Yeah.
You supported me. Let me support you. I know you got to work. So if you have to put a car in your, you know, part needs to go on your car on Sunday afternoon after church, shoot me a text. I'll tell you how to do it.
Okay. And you have a family, so you said you have a son and a daughter.
Yep.
Has that changed your work schedule at all from, you know, like, so when you were first getting started, when you were doing $1 million out of your garage, it sounds like you're probably working, you know, super long days, right, to get all that stuff done?
Yeah, I worked 2 jobs up until 96, 2 full-time jobs. And, you know, this was probably more than a full-time job. The only break I've really had that I had to change my schedule for was a custody thing with my son. For about 2 years, that ex-employee of mine basically ran everything in the shop, which he takes a lot more credit for than he should have, because Nick does the same thing now, and it's just part of his job. He orders parts, takes orders, ships the parts. You know, it's your job when you come here. And he doesn't need any extra recognition for it. I tell him he does a great job all the time. But other than that, no, you know, your kids go to school during the day, so you work during the day. So I get in at 9, I leave at 3:30 because my kids are, you know, they need me there. My wife's a full-time RN. She's a fantastic, she's actually a cancer nurse. She's an RN at a cancer facility. She's a fantastic nurse. Not saying it because she's my wife. She's just a caring person that should have been a nurse. Some people do it because I think they make $50,000 a year. My wife does it because she loves to help people, and it almost chokes me up how good she is at it. She's fantastic at it. So she gets home, you know, 5 o'clock from work, and, you know, we have our family time. I love to eat dinner with my kids and my wife. I think that's something important every night, to sit down and have a conversation with your family for those few minutes and throw your phone to the side.
All right. And so you said you're at 40 hours, like, you know, 9 to 5. And you also mentioned it a little bit that you have the ability to step away, go on your canoeing trip, and you don't have to worry about people calling and asking questions on what they need to do next. So it sounds like you have really dialed in the business to be, you know, like self-managing, where the people working for you know exactly what needs to be done always. So you don't.
The people that work for me, let me just interrupt. The people that work for me know more about what needs to be done than what I do. Nick runs the shop. Nick and Ted run the shop. Nick takes all the orders. He passes everything to Ted that needs to be. Ted's my fabricator, welder. He takes, let me go back. I got to give credit to these guys, though, because if you don't have good employees, you're going to work 80 hours a week. The only reason I can leave here is because of the guys that work for me, including Dave and Mike. But they're the mechanic side. Ted and Nick manage and run everything here. Ted takes all the engines apart. He takes all the stuff to the machine shop. He takes the correct piston labeled for this block, drops it off, tells the machine shop what to do. He picks the stuff back up, gets it on the engine stand. Like on an Evo, you install, you know, the balance shaft delete kits. The main studs are installed. It's in a bag. I go over. The pistons are laying there. The rods are there. The correct rings are there. The correct bearings are there. I take the bag off, check everything, assemble the thing. I don't have to do a whole lot there.
Okay.
Everything was managed properly before I got there. And I can leave. I don't know how long I could leave for. I guess at some point I got to balance a checkbook. But unless it's negative, who cares? The money's either there or it's not there, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, what's amazing is you don't. I'm sure you don't have a formal business plan written, do you?
No, I don't even know what that would be.
Yeah. So
I don't even know what it is. I don't know what's a business plan.
Well, it gives you
my
kind of
plan is make sure these guys can get a paycheck at the end of the week. That's my plan.
Yeah, and so
seriously.
Yeah, and so like people go to like business school to write a plan to make sure the business has a direction and a path forward, and you have exactly what most of these people strive for, and you've done it. You know, like not even deliberately. The business essentially runs itself. You do not need to be there, and you're very successful. The people you have working for you have been there for so long that like it I would say most of them are going to be irreplaceable. It's very hard to find people like that. So,
yeah, it's very hard, very hard. I thought when my brother left, I was going to be screwed actually on a mechanic. And Dave, actually, when he left, we just started sending work out back over to him.
Okay.
And then Dave came here. He's got a diesel background. He actually went to college for diesel, and then he worked in a salt mine on this massive equipment. So he has a very broad knowledge. Well, he started helping me with remember the automatic transmission project I had my Evo? He started helping me with that. And like I said, he lost his job at the steel mill. Then he went to this company named Cargill. It was in Louisiana, decided that wasn't going to work because his family was up here, moved back up here. So he kind of like moved into the job slowly. And he's a fantastic mechanic. This new guy, Mike, he's a fantastic mechanic. He's done 3 or 4 big jobs here now that have been, I mean, not a screw loose. And you know how hard it is to do a whole car that at the end you don't at least blow an intercooler pipe off of.
Right.
And it's been flawless.
Okay. What are the primary tools you are using? So are you using QuickBooks? Do you guys use notepads? Like, what are you using to actually manage the projects that you have there?
So QuickBooks is the only thing that I have that's like business oriented. Nick's the only one that even knows how to run it. Well, Mike does too, I guess. Now he got taught, but it's more of a database for making an invoice. So if we ever like got audited and they wanted our QuickBooks, it would be impossible. I would just go to jail because we'll do an invoice on QuickBooks that never even gets processed because you do an invoice, you send a quote over. Well, it looks like a sale. So how do you know it's rung up? I don't even know what you would do in there. So we have I'm looking at one right here on my desk. It's like the old legal binders, like when you went to school to learn to do accounting in high school.
Yeah.
Every time we make a sale, the date goes in, the customer's name, the amount that he paid, and if there's sales tax or something like that, there's another column for it.
Okay.
It's written down on a sheet of paper. Millions of dollars a year are written on a sheet of paper.
So
at the end of the month, that is ripped out of this book, and it's sent to the accountant.
Okay.
And then the accountant goes through the actual, our bank register, makes sure that stuff matches up what's in there, and takes the list of anything we purchased. And I don't do anything. I don't know how to pay taxes. I don't do payroll. I send it to an accountant. They do it at the end of the year. They tell me what I owe. At the end of the week, they do the payroll. Okay. I've got it made, man.
Okay, so you have
I have no regrets, and I have got it made in what I do.
Awesome. And so you have an accountant doing that kind of stuff, which is, so for some people, they try to do it themselves. Myself, I have a CPA, but we handle most of it on our end, which seems to be more trouble than it's worth. But
yeah, dude, let them go to jail. I told my accountant one thing. I never want to go to jail.
Okay.
So I report what we do, and whatever I have to pay, I pay. I mean, it is what it is.
Okay.
At the end of every year, we do a physical inventory. That's the only way we know what's in the building and out. But up until about 2 years ago, maybe a year ago, I have never had an item come missing from this shop. I had an ex-employee that was coming here doing some work, and we had a couple things come up missing. I don't talk to the guy anymore. There's a few things I can't stand: a liar and a thief. If you catch me in a lie, you might as well shoot me because I don't lie about nothing, and I don't steal anything. So when the guys start here, if they need anything, a loan, they need a part for their car, if you come and ask me, you could probably just have it. But if you steal from me, it's a death sentence. So I don't need to do an inventory to find out what we've got. Nick knows what we've got. We just ordered 10 intercoolers and we sold 4. So there's 6 left. It's not rocket science.
Right.
So, but at the end of each year, we have to do, physics, but we don't keep much here. Most of what we have here is large tubing and, some small trinket stuff. You got bolts and washers and stuff, but the majority of the stuff is pistons and rods and bearings, and it's easy to go through and do a quick inventory.
Yeah. Okay, I wanted to take one more break here before we continue on to the last part of this interview here. EFI University is hosting a new class called Essentials of Operating a Shop. If you're interested in learning how to run your shop more efficiently, this class is for you. For details and to find a class near you, go to EFI101.com and look for the Essentials of Operating a Shop class. Our next class is being held in Chicago, Illinois on September 3rd, followed by Los Angeles, California on October 15th. Be sure to use the coupon code DIFAL for $50 off when you sign up. Moving on to more about yourself here. So what's something that you do struggle with business, and how do you deal with it?
I mentioned a couple times I just turned 50 in July. So I told you I quit with the 401k stuff. Mm-hmm. I believe in paying my bills. So I don't owe anything. But the reality of it is I have no money saved. I spend like a crack whore. I mean, I'm just, if I want, like last week, I bought a billet diff for the GTR. Well, that's money that I probably could have done something else with, but it was like $3,600. I'm tired of busting the ETS and having it wear out, so I thought I'd get the best, latest, greatest thing I could put in the car because the shootout's coming up, and I don't want to have problems. So I think my only real struggle right now, and some advice that I would give anybody, and my son's way ahead of me because he's got like 20 grand in the stock market, money market stuff, is to save some money. Because now I'm looking at being 50. I was hoping to retire and my son take it over. It's not going to happen. I have no money saved. Like what's in my personal checking account, is what I've got. And it's, I'll be honest, it's maybe $8,000. So other than that, yeah, I take a paycheck every day, but my house is paid for and I can easily start saving money as quickly as I need to save it because I pay myself okay.
Yeah, and if you don't owe anybody, you have very, very little living expenses.
Yeah, I don't. You got property tax and you got your insurance and crap, but that's it really. But I that's my one thing I'm struggling with now is that at some point I'm going to have to stop being an idiot and buy a motorcycle or like last year we were going down to Texas. This was a stupid business decision. I bought a $90,000 F650 pickup truck. It was the biggest pile of shit I probably ever owned. It was a brand new custom built, it's like a semi, but it's a pickup truck.
Yeah.
I owned it for about 2 months. I lost about $20,000 when the company I bought it from agreed to buy it back from me, and they just were going to resell it. There was nothing wrong with it. I just hated it. And my entire business has been run like that. You buy something this week and go, like a GT500 I bought. It was a $60,000 Mustang. The transmission wouldn't shift. It was junk. Ford wouldn't do anything. So I lost 10 grand, put 600 miles on it, but I wasn't going to keep it. And I wasn't going to fix the transmission in a brand new car. So I'm very dumb with my money, and that is what I struggle with. It doesn't put me in the hole, but it should be money that's probably in a savings account, at least not drawing interest, so I had something to retire on. So that's my only struggle. Okay. I'm very dumb with my money, and I really need to start considering some way to retire at some point. But I love what I'm doing, so I don't feel like I'm working. I feel like I'm playing.
That's some very important insight, though. I mean, I am not very good with money either.
It's gonna bite us in the ass because I came up with a way not to pay Social Security. So, they send you that thing in the mail that tells you how much Social Security you're going to get. Well, a few years ago, because I worked at the steel mill, paid in here, I was getting like $2,600 a month. I was thinking, no bills, you can live on that. Well, I got another one last year. It says now I get $1,400 because I haven't paid in for a few years. Mm-hmm. And it was a business move on my side to get me out of about $7,500 in Social Security, extra taxes, workers' comp that I was never going to collect. I'm not going to claim a workers' comp claim on myself. Mm-hmm. That'd be retarded. So by doing this, now I'm looking at, well, boy, that $2,600 that I thought I might get, not have to worry about retiring, is now $1,400. And the way the government is, I'm probably not going to get that. So think for anybody listening to this, save some money. And put it where you're not going to pull it out to buy stupid toys like I've done 50 times.
Okay. Yeah, so we can even use that as our action item for our listeners to take away to improve their situation. Save some money.
Save some money.
Save
for retirement. Just save for retirement.
Okay. What do you use to promote yourself in the business? Are you using Facebook, or is it just building cars and racing? Your event. You don't do any trade shows, I don't believe, right?
I don't do any trade shows. I do advertise occasionally with D-Sport. I was on a lot of forums. Forums are pretty expensive. And I'm still on Evolution M. I'm on GTR Life, and we're on GTR Heritage. Unfortunately, or fortunately, I guess how you look at it, the GTRs have slowly taken over almost everything. We're doing a lot of Evo sales, but as far as installs go, it's almost completely GTRs now. We're very busy in that market. So probably the most money I spend a year now is actually advertising through Facebook.
Okay.
And it's absolutely enormous. Facebook is the number one place I go for advertisement and getting product out there now. And a few years ago, I thought Facebook was for high school kids and maybe people that weren't insecure in their masculinity. And a funny story on that. The same people that did my the race on the same day as the shootout, trying to affect the shootout, started a Facebook page about me, and it depicted me as a guy looking for other men, and people that were signing up for this Buschur Racing account were getting nasty emails back from them. So I started getting this hate mail like, "Hey man, what's your deal? Why'd you call me whatever the racist slur they wanted, or a homosexual or whatever?" So I was like, "What in the hell are you talking about? I don't even know what Facebook is." So I went and looked, and sure enough, here's this fake Facebook page that this competing shop did. So I had to contact Facebook to get the thing taken down. Well, it took a while. So in the meantime, I started my own Facebook, which I wanted no part of. And I had to start sending messages to all these people. "Hey, man, sorry, that's not me, blah, blah, blah." And they were doing it right live on the Facebook page. Why I sent so many messages that Facebook locked me down as a spammer.
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
So anyway, it was a big fiasco, but I want to thank those douchebags that started that page now, because Facebook has become my number one way to contact customers, and it's probably made me more money advertising the shop than anything ever did.
Yep.
So it's funny because what they did to try to hurt me, even the shootout competition made the shootout grow because people got mad at them for trying to do something on the same day and break this awesome community that got apart, and they came to the shootout instead. And then the Facebook page, I'd have never got involved in Facebook. I still wouldn't be on there. And the Facebook thing got me involved in texting. I would have never texted. I thought that was for high school girls, which brought this tech line that I now run 24 hours a day for the shop, So it's funny because sometimes the worst things that can happen to you turn into the best things.
Yeah. And what's funny is, I'm in total agreement. Facebook is, for me, I don't even advertise on Evo M anymore. I haven't even been on that page in probably a year.
It's a terrible site now. It's filled with nothing but advertisement. I go there once every week to check my messages, and that's it.
Yeah, and Facebook, you can target exactly who you want. You can do targeted advertising. You can do the sponsored posts, which is like the various forms of advertising on there. You can be in all the little groups for all the different year, make, model, locales. There's all kinds of different ways to do it, and it works so well, and it's free. Well, unless you're doing advertising. So
yeah, unless you're doing advertising, and we maybe spend, I don't know, $200 a month through that.
But that's all it takes, Yeah,
and it's really not. And you hit. I mean, you're hitting 80 to 100,000 people easily on $200. There's 44,000 people I think on our shop page. That's a huge audience just alone there.
Yeah, for sure. And your 44,000 likes, I'm sure, some people can actually buy likes, but yours are, I'm sure, are all organic because you're well known, and the shootout drives all those likes to that page, which means the people you're posting to are legitimate people, and it makes everything you do more effective. So
how do you buy a like on Facebook?
Oh, you don't even do it through Facebook. Just Google buy likes, and you can literally buy likes for it.
I've never heard of that. It's just kind of grown on its own, so I would imagine it's like you said, organic.
Yeah,
I didn't know you could do that.
It's click farms in like India and shit like that. So you pay them like $100 and they'll give you like 10,000 likes.
I try to keep all my business in the U.S., so I'll keep that one here too.
Right. Okay. And so do you have a 1-year or 5-year plan for yourself or the business? I know you said you kind of wanted to retire at some point, but I mean...
Yeah, I don't know. I guess No, I don't have a plan. I've thought a few times about selling, and I've had a couple people approach me about buying the shop. And it's gotten ruined because I won't throw my guys to the dirt. So the two guys that were fairly interested, I told them that at the time, my two main guys, Ted and Nick, had to stay with the business.
Uh-huh.
They said, "We're going to sell the building and just take the name and the product and leave." And I said, "Then it's not for sale. I can't leave here with however many dollars it's worth. I don't even know what it's worth. I know what it was up for sale for, and it was only $750,000. I can't walk out of here with $750,000 thinking, well, that's going to be enough for me to live on, and let these two guys go collect unemployment.
Mm-hmm.
That's horse shit. These guys have committed 13 and 10 years of their life to me. I'm not the kind of, I guess I watched it happen at the steel mill. All these guys that thought they were going to retire got boned. It's happened all across the country. So I can't do that. So
Integrity.
if I ever decided to sell I just talked to somebody big in the industry last week that's leaving a shop about buying, but I told him that, those two guys they have to stay. They got to keep their job. Even if it's a remote, I don't care. If in a year you decide to do something different, that's fine. But when I leave here, I have to know that those two guys are employed.
Okay. It's an integrity thing. Like it's your personality, it's your background, your the way you grew up is work hard for the company and give the people who work for you, make sure they're well set, right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think my guys are, they're fairly well paid here. The raises, that's one thing I have a hard time with is doing wages and raises, because with every, it's easy to give a guy $100 a week raise or whatever you're going to do. The taxes and all the workers' comp and crap that goes along with it makes it very difficult.
Mm-hmm.
So it's easier for me to do bonus stuff.
Okay.
And I'm not going to get into all that publicly. That's for damn sure. But, I guess my idea of taking care of my guys is at least if I leave, they have to be guaranteed a job. If the guy that buys me out breaks the agreement later, I at least want him to know that, hey, here's the agreement I've got. He says he's going to keep you employed. Well, if he breaks his agreement, that really had nothing to do with me.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? But you can't screw the people that help you out, man. I'm too blessed to have all these guys here. I would never do that. So my plan is, I guess, to figure out some way for myself to retire. But along with that plan, I have to make sure that the people here that work for me are taken care of.
Okay. And that's why they've worked for you for so long, because you do take care of them.
Maybe just can't work anywhere else. I'm not that easy to work for, probably, but that's probably not true either. Because most days I come in and I don't even have to say anything. Nick knows what to do. Ted knows what to do. If there's a car needing to work on, Dave and Mike know what to do. Buddy, I'm telling you what. If anybody ever had it made, it's got a business. It's me. It's whatever. It just is what it is. I've got it made.
Okay. So the next section is our quick answer questions. So these are just real quick answers, whatever comes to your mind. So what's a game-changing product you've seen in the last year?
Beer. Oh, you said whatever come to my mind. Game-changing product. The only thing I can think of, and we haven't even used it yet completely, is that Hydromat.
Okay. That's actually a very popular one. A lot of people have said that.
You know what else is there? The billet industry, billet parts in the automotive industry are getting huge.
Okay.
I think that there's now reasonable ways to get stuff machined in billet that are going to change things. Like the catch can for the GTR, not to keep going back to that product, but it's a really good product that we offer. We made them by hand, and it's extremely time consuming. And now I've got a shop in the U.S., actually pretty close to us, that can CNC that whole thing. And man, it is a beautiful work of frickin' art. And I can get it done reasonable enough that I'm not going to make quite as much profit as I was before, but it's such a upgrade. We actually only raised the price $20.
Okay.
You couldn't have done something in billet. And we also make a front differential for the GTR. The GTR front diff is junk. The helical cut gears will let the pinion just blow out the back of it, and it breaks the case. And it breaks the block. So it's in a very expensive breakage when it breaks. So now we make that out of billet. So I think the availability of quality machined CNC components is a big game changer.
Okay. What software programs are you using daily?
QuickBooks, and for tuning I use open source mostly for the Evos, Cobb, and AEM.
Okay. And do you have a favorite app that you use daily, like Facebook?
Yeah, Facebook. I really like that Text Now app for doing our tech stuff. And I like Instagram too. We get a lot of pictures on Instagram. There's not so much communication, but it's kind of cool because people can. I sit up for hours sometimes when I can't sleep and just go through the search feature.
Look for all the pictures.
It's cool. I like Instagram too.
Okay. What's your favorite shop tool?
If you give me a welder and a chop saw and a bench grinder, I can probably make just about anything given enough time. So when I fabricate something, it's a chop saw. We've got a bench grinder. It's got like a rubber expanding wheel on it with a sanding disc. It's awesome. It's awesome. And a TIG or a MIG welder. I'm a pretty decent welder. I'm not like somebody that could put pictures of a weld up on the internet for weld porn, but
yeah, I'm not. I can't
weld
weld either.
enough to sell it.
What kind of car are you driving right now?
My daily driver is a EcoBoost F-150. It's my favorite truck of all time.
Okay.
I pull a 36-foot enclosed gooseneck with that thing with the GTR in it.
Really?
And it pulls better than probably any diesel other than a wicked-up Duramax that I had.
Huh, okay. And then what do you think the future of automotive performance is going to be?
I don't know. I think it'll just kind of continue with what it is. You know, the technology is going to continue to grow, and, you know, like stuff like traction control and all that stuff, which I'm still not really up to date on. A lot of setting that stuff up is... I mean, look, man, we got 6-cylinder cars running 5s now. Where's it going to end?
Right.
I don't think there is an end. You know, 20 years ago, you'd asked me and it said, yeah, 4-cylinder is going to go 9s, and that's going to be it. Sure. So, I mean, I don't even think there is an answer. There's just, as long as people love cars, it's going to continue to evolve.
And your business is evolving too, because it sounds like you pushed into the GTR market, and that's kind of where you're headed. And you're not even really looking back at. You sold your rear-wheel drive Evo project. You don't do the all-wheel drive or the automatic transmission thing anymore. You just kind of like you keep evolving your business as well, huh?
Yeah, for sure. We did that auto project. I sold it to that buddy of mine, Matt Smith. He's actually doing really well with it. He's been running that trans now for over a year and has not broke it. So he's going to bring that to market on his own. I sold the project off to him pretty cheap.
Okay.
And then made it rear-wheel drive. Couldn't stand it because it's, I don't know. It wasn't. I was hoping it was going to turn out to be an Evo that was just rear-wheel drive. What ended up being an Evo that was rear-wheel drive that spun the tires a lot.
All right. Okay. And so how do we connect with you and your company?
You can get me through email at david@br-racing.com. There's a tech line that you can text questions to me 24 hours a day. And, like, you know, obviously I sleep, but I'll get back to you as soon as I can. That tech number is 440-652-5695. Our shop number is 440-839-1900. You'll probably talk to Nick. And then we're on Facebook, Instagram, website, buschurracing.com. Our Instagram is Buschur Racing, and so is our Facebook page.
Okay. And we'll have all these links and all the information up on our webpage for the show notes as well. So you can get a hold of Dave that way. And Dave, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with us.
You know, I put this off for about 2 years, and I really enjoyed doing it. So thanks for letting me do it.
Thanks for listening to Do It for a Living. You can find out more about this guest, this show, and even details about what we